Chapter 135. I have a feeling that Wang Ren won't let this go. On the way, Zhuo Jingxi couldn't help but say this. Calling Chen Guang over to change his dressing was one reason, but the other reason was that she was still brooding over this. When the joy of success gradually calmed down, Zhuo Jingxi also thought of this. Chen Guang squeezed his fist a little harder, and the wound on his finger no longer hurt. He replied indifferently, "Of course I know that, but it doesn't matter. He can't just fire me because I'm too handsome, right? If he wants to pick a fight with me, he has to have a good reason, right?" Zhuo Jingxi felt defeated by him. "I'm serious." "What are you sure about?" Chen Guang flicked his hair. "I'm serious too." When the two of them arrived near the school building, it was about 9:30 p.m. It was already dark and sparsely populated. After entering the academy building, the lights in the various offices and conference rooms were all dark, but only Vice Principal Han's office was still lit. Perhaps he had given another temporary task to the higher-ups, so he had to personally work overtime. Vice President Han is working hard. Chen Guang couldn't help but say this when the two of them entered Zhuo Jingxi's office. Zhuo Jingxi nodded. "Exactly. That's why I said this morning that you can scold Fatty Wang, but you can't scold Vice President Han. Vice President Han is one of the few senior leaders in our school. He didn't have any connections and relied on his own academic standards to get to where he is today. There are at least 30 to 50 doctoral students under his tutelage." Chen Guang only smiled. He thought that teacher Zhuo was too naive. There were so many academic seniors in the school, but only he could become the vice president. There was no doubt about his academic standards, but he didn't believe that he didn't have other tricks up his sleeves. Whether he believed it or not, it had nothing to do with Chen Guang. Zhuo Jingxi carefully applied medicine to Chen Guang's wound while stealing glances at the little boy from time to time. In her heart, she was still thinking about Chen Guang's sloppy appearance when he ran out of the door that day. She felt a little strange and didn't know what was going on. From that day onwards, Chen Guang no longer had any flowery words or actions in front of him. He appeared to be like Zhou Wu, Zheng Wang, and all sorts of righteous people. To be honest, Zhuo Jingxi was not used to it. She didn't want to admit that she was looking forward to something that shouldn't have happened. She was just puzzled. Of course, Zhuo Jingxi had long seen through Sun Xiaoxuan's feelings for Chen Guang, and Gaoye had repeatedly pointed it out in front of her. Zhuo Jingxi often reminded herself in her heart, "I'm his teacher. I can't be stupid and do something like snatching a student's man, even though Chen Guang is really outstanding." However, when this change really happened to Chen Guang, Zhuo Jingxi felt a faint sense of loss in her heart. How could she have known that Chen Guang had been so cheeky and daring that he had even taken the initiative to take advantage of her, purely because she was too depressed because of Fatty Wang's scheme? Even if she had jumped out to save her life, she still wouldn't have been able to boost her morale. Chen Guang didn't have any other good ideas to enlighten her, so he simply came up with this bad idea of taking advantage of her to distract her. Now it seemed that the effect was not bad. Perhaps it was a little too good. Chen Guang also felt the strange atmosphere in the office. He was a little flustered, and even subconsciously pinched his chin with his left hand to hide his panic. In the dead of night, a man and a woman are alone, but teacher Zhuo had to call me to her office. Could it be? She's planning to be honest, I'm really moved. But this plot is developing too fast, and I can't take it. Teacher Zhuo, at least give me a little time to calm down and let me think about it. At least give me 3 days. You directly made the plot so fierce, like a waterfall from Mount Lu rushing down 3,000 feet straight down. I'm a little caught off guard. Chen Guang secretly swallowed his saliva and couldn't help but sweep his eyes over Zhuo Jingxi. At this time, she was lowering her head and bending over, concentrating on fiddling with Chen Guang's right hand. Chen Guang's gaze followed Zhuo Jingxi's neckline without any hindrance. That's right, this was the scene that Chen Guang had fantasized about when he was alone. This time, his dream had come true. Zhuo Jingxi was 1.72 meters tall, and she was even more voluptuous than Wenwen. It was a hot summer, but she only wore a snow-white professional shirt and didn't button the top button. From this angle of view, the two full moons were exposed, and Zhuo Jingxi's sky-blue laced breastplate. It reminded Chen Guang of a scene when he was playing Dota. He controlled the void mask and suddenly cut in with a perfect big move, Big 5. Moreover, it was a perfect juxtaposition of two big moves of the void mask. It was also known as the double refresh ball. Alright, this was too profound. It was two semicircles of the time freeze ball, two sky blue hemispheres. This was too scary. This was more than just time freeze. Even the thought of me, the savior of the heavenly holy grail, was about to freeze. My physical body was also about to be frozen. Not good, the power that the old man had suppressed for a long time was about to go out of control again. She was so close now, and I was wearing thin Hawaiian shorts. If the dragon raised its head, the sky would definitely fall and the earth would crack, severely injuring her eyes and destroying my glorious image in her heart. What should I do? What could he do to suppress this terrifying desolate force? Chen Guang was burning with anxiety as he immediately shifted his gaze away and looked around Zhuo Jingxi's office. Huh? What was that? Why didn't I notice it before? In the corner of the office, next to the curtain, Chen Guang found a very interesting thing. It was not a thing, but a set. It was a set of medieval knight armor. It looked quite new, and the workmanship was also quite good. The helmet and visor were quite exquisite. When flipped, it could completely cover the whole face. Awesome. It even had gloves. This workmanship, this thought, it was a high-end product. As a professional, who had been in Big Beard Deng's crew, Chen Guang boasted that he knew the ropes. He was really attracted by this interesting thing. He could not help but imagine how it would feel when he wore this armor. It must be quite powerful and domineering, right? Amazing, really amazing. No matter who wore this, as long as they flipped the visor down, they would have an omnidirectional defense without any blind spots. This thing looked very valuable. Could it be that Teacher Zhuo was a rich second-generation kid who had been hiding his strength? I've underestimated you. Can I move it and sell it? Since we're friends, I'll do it. That's Teacher Shin's collection. He likes this kind of thing, so he didn't have time to take it with him. I thought it was in the way, so I moved it to the corner. It's so heavy that I'm exhausted. Teacher Shin already called me. In 2 days, he'll ask someone to help him move it. Didn't you notice before? It seems that you haven't been to Teacher Shin's office in the past few years. Zhuo Jingxi noticed the look in Chen Guang's eyes. Chen Guang laughed. Why would I come to the counselor's office for no reason? It's not like I'm doing anything bad. Sigh, it's actually Teacher Shin's stuff. I can't turn on begging mode. But this thing looks really good. Teacher Shin has good taste. I really want to try it on. Its defense is 8 streets better than Big Beard Deng's. Teacher Zhuo, I want to try it on. Can you take a few pictures of me later? I'll post it on my friend's circle to show off. Zhuo Jingxi tied the thin layer of gauze around Chen Guang's hand and frowned. This isn't very good, right? 30 minutes later. Hey, just like this. Raise your hand a little higher. That's right, that's right. It feels so cool. Chapter 136. Chen Guang, look at this one. It's so beautiful, just like the general in the Song of Ice and Fire. After clicking countless times, Zhuo Jingxi held her phone and waved it in front of Chen Guang, who was still wearing his armor. Although she said no, her body was honest. When the photo was taken, she was even more excited than Chen Guang himself. She looked like a little girl. Chen Guang lifted his visor and wiped his sweat. He thought that it was very handsome, but it was really stuffy. It turned out that there was a layer of skin inside the armor. It was airtight. Teacher Zhuo, I disagree with your sense of aesthetics. The photo you mentioned was taken when I covered my visor. It didn't show my face, so it's missing the biggest highlight. It's not the most handsome. Chen Guang was still very stubborn about his face. While the two were happily whispering, there was a sudden knock on Zhuo Jingxi's office door. Dong, dong, dong. It was the middle of the night. It was like a ghost. Little Zhuo, are you still inside? It's so late. You're still working overtime? Deputy Director Han's voice came from outside. Perhaps Deputy Director Han had finished his overtime work and came over to say hello. Fortunately, it was not a ghost. The two let out a long sigh. Then they looked at each other and saw an inexplicable fear in each other's eyes. Although there were no ghosts outside, there were ghosts in their hearts. Deputy Director Han was outside the door. This was not something to be happy about. Perhaps it was even more haunted. At this moment, in the dead of night, a man and a woman, a teacher and a student, sharing a room. If this situation was broken by Deputy Director Han, it would definitely be like yellow mud falling into his pants. Even if it was not sh*t, it was sh*t. He would not be able to wash himself clean even if he jumped into the yellow river. Deputy Director Han waited for a while. There was no movement, so he knocked on the door again. Fortunately, he was much more polite than that damn fatty Wang Ren. He did not barge in without saying anything. Little Zhuo? Are you there? This young man, did he go home without turning off the lights? What a sloppy tiger. Forget it, I'll turn off the lights. I'll talk to him tomorrow. While talking to himself, Deputy Director Han opened the door. Your manners can only last for 10 seconds. Zhuo Jingxi turned her hand over and pulled on Chen Guang's mask. With a slap, she covered his face tightly. Then, she turned around abruptly and smiled awkwardly at Vice President Han, who had just walked in. She even pretended to rub her eyes. Hey! President Han, I'm here. I'm about to open the door. Sigh, I was a little sleepy and fell asleep on the table. Sorry about that. At this moment, Chen Guang's hands were hanging by his side and his neck was straight like a zombie, not daring to move at all. Damn, I was scared to death. Sure enough, the older the ginger, the spicier it is. Teacher Zhuo hasn't been eating more rice than me for nothing. I give her full marks for her ability to improvise. This armor covers my entire body. As long as I maintain this posture and don't move, I will definitely not be seen through. Old Man Han will definitely treat me as the real armor. It was a sure win. Damn, it was really King hot. Deputy Director Han didn't suspect anything. He walked in 2 or 3 steps, smiled and said, Little Zhuo, you just started working. I understand your eagerness to get results, but don't work too hard. Especially you girls, you should pay more attention to the balance between work and rest. Zhuo Jingxi nodded repeatedly. Yes, thank you for your teachings, President Han. I will definitely remember. That's good. Oh right, about Wang Ren, sigh, there are some things that I can't say clearly. Wang Ren, this person, has indeed gone overboard. But this is the way of the world. We can't change others. We can only try our best to do our best. In short, don't worry. In this academy, there are still people who understand. I will find a way to get you into the committee as soon as possible. No matter how hard Wang Ren's hands are, he won't be able to reach into the committee. Just hold on for now. I really think highly of you. Don't be discouraged, and don't be resentful. You are a talent, and you will eventually shine. These words seemed to be the real reason why Deputy Director Han had come so late today. Zhuo Jingxi nodded. Thank you, Deputy Director Han. What are you thanking me for? Your teacher and I have been best friends for many years. How can I not protect her student? In any case, if you really can't stop Wang Ren, come and find me. I will help you think of a way, Deputy Director Han said. Zhuo Jingxi grunted in agreement. Although she was touched, she was thinking, my deputy director, it's already so late. You are already so old. You should hurry back and rest. Then this matter ends here? Deputy Director Han asked again. NN. Zhua Jingxi secretly panted. This old man was finally going to leave. Chen Guang was about to get sick from the heat, right? Chen Guang was also thanking the heavens. There was a spot on his butt that was itching. I really want to scratch it. Help. Oh right, you are fiddling with this armor. Deputy Director Han suddenly said. Zhua Jingxi was so scared that her body went limp. Chen Guang, on the other hand, almost fell on his back. Old man, I feel that there is more to what you said. Can you say it all at once? I was just planning to move it. The place where I live is very close to Little Shen's house. He asked me to help him bring it back. You know how much Little Shen cares about these things. However, this armor is very expensive. It would be too conspicuous to move it in broad daylight. It's just right now. Deputy Director Han said as he touched Chen Guang's shoulder armor. Then, he used his finger to knock on the breastplate a few times. It's okay. It doesn't look very thick. It shouldn't be heavy. Chen Guang expressed that he hoped that old man Han would not finish his sentence. Also, can you stop knocking? I am so nervous. Zhua Jingxi looked at this scene and stared blankly with her almond-shaped eyes. She was completely confused and her brain stopped working. She could imagine how frightened Deputy Director Han would be when Chen Guang jumped out of the armor like Sun Wukong. Then, what kind of psychological trauma would be left in this poor old man's heart? What was even more tragic was that as a talent who had just been determined, her short career seemed to be coming to an end. On the other side, old man Han had already bent down and hugged Chen Guang's waist. He used a little force and tried to lift it up. Zhua Jingxi's face was already ashen. She gave up struggling. She was going to be exposed. Ah! My waist. Why is it so heavy? Old man Han suddenly cried out in shock. His body stiffened. He used his hands to support his waist and stepped back. Oh my God, how can it not be heavy? There is a person inside. Zhua Jingxi was pulled back to reality by old man Han's cry. She hurriedly went forward to support him. Are you okay? Old man Han supported his waist and twisted slightly. It's okay. I'm old and underestimated this armor. I didn't use my strength well and it flashed a little. That's weird. Little Shen clearly told me it wasn't heavy. As he said that, he moved forward again. He still did not give up. Zhua Jingxi finally came to her senses. She suddenly blocked in front of old man Han and said, Deputy Director Han, don't waste your energy. Let me carry it. Deputy Director Han shook his head and waved his hand. It's too heavy. You're a little girl. It's impossible. Why don't the two of us carry it? Carry it? Zhua Jingxi's face turned pale. She had persisted until now and had not been exposed. But if she carried it, she would definitely not be able to hold it. What should she do? What should she do? Chen Guang's face was full of tears. Liuli, quickly teach me a teleportation technique. My situation is a little too awkward. Chapter 137. Perhaps the god of brain teasers was favoring Zhua Jingxi. She clapped her hands so hard that even old Han jumped in fright. Dean Han, you can go to your office and rest first. I can move it over by myself. Of course, it's too heavy to carry the whole thing. How could I dare to let you carry me? What if I really sprain your waist? Wouldn't I have committed a great sin today? I just thought about this thing, and it can be taken apart. I'll do it alone, dismantle it and move it over. I just need to make 2 more trips. Zhua Jingxi was determined not to let old Han touch the armor again. Deputy Director Han was very touched. Young people nowadays really knew how to sympathize with the elderly. He also felt that Zhua Jingxi's idea was not bad. He thought to himself, it just so happens that I haven't compressed the report and sent it out yet. That's fine too. This is my car key. It's the Buick MPV in the parking lot below. Hee, there are many children at home. It's more convenient to bring the whole family out to play in the MPV. It's also quite spacious to carry things. As he spoke, Old Han took out his car keys and placed it in Zhuo Jingxi's hand. Then I'll leave it to you. But don't try to show off. If you really can't open it, call me over to help you move it. I have a report to send to the Chinese Academy of Sciences, so I have to get back to work. It's getting late, and if I drive any later, I won't be able to see clearly. After sending Old Han out, Zhuo Jingxi quickly but gently closed the office door. On the other side, Chen Guang had already lifted his visor and was panting heavily. You scared me to death, you scared me to death. Zhuo Jingxi patted her chest, still in a state of shock. Chen Guang, on the other hand, was huffing and puffing. I'm suffocating to death. Quick, help me take it off. Zhuo Jingxi shook her head vehemently. You can't take it off here. Have you forgotten how troublesome it is to put this thing on? It took almost half an hour for you to put it on just now, and it will take at least 10 to 20 minutes to take it off. What if President Han comes over again and sees me taking off the armor from your body? What will he think? Wouldn't all our previous efforts be in vain? Chen Guang nodded. That makes sense. Then what should we do? What should we do? First, take off these iron shoes on your legs. While President Han's door is closed, you will wear your armor and go downstairs with me. Go directly to President Han's car, take off one piece and throw one inside. It won't be easy for him to see me taking off my clothes over there. I'll stand next to the car so I can be prepared in advance. Hurry up and hide in the bushes next to the parking lot after you're done taking off your clothes. Even if you haven't taken all of them off, you can hide them in the bushes when he comes. Just don't let him catch you. Chen Guang was overjoyed. As expected of Teacher Zhuo. You've thought of everything. 20 minutes later, Chen Guang was lying in the back cabin of the Buick MPV, feeling the bumpiness of the car and the pain of being knocked by the armor on his body from time to time. He felt a little melancholy in his heart. In front of him, Old Han was driving while wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. His entire body was sweating like rain, and Chen Guang's entire face was flushed red. If it wasn't for the benevolent Old Han turning on the car's air conditioner, a cool breeze would sweep over from the back of the seat from time to time and blow on Chen Guang's face. Chen Guang felt that he was almost half-cooked. Don't ask me why I'm here and why I'm in this situation. I really want to know why too. I just want to quietly think about how I'm going to face the rest of my life. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before Old Han also had to think about this problem. After all, his singing was really a little unworthy of his poor car CD. Zhuo Jingxi's thoughts were completely correct. It was only this world that was wrong. The two of them had just sneakily run to the back cabin of Old Han's car, and this old man had actually already finished sending the email and ran down. At this moment, Chen Guang had only taken off the pair of combat boots on his feet. Zhuo Jingxi's brain crashed once again. Women, in the end, were still not calm enough. Chen Guang's reaction was still fast. He slipped into the back cabin of the MPV, then silently curled up his body and laid down horizontally. Then, under Zhuo Jingxi's dumbfounded gaze, he gently and silently covered the visor. Chen Guang felt that the look in his eyes when he faced death with equanimity was definitely comparable to that of a brave warrior who dared to face death. After all, I've preserved the last bit of my spark, and until now, I haven't exposed myself. Zhuo Jingxi silently placed the combat boots next to Chen Guang's face, then silently pulled down the back cabin cover. Then, she turned to Old Han, who was walking over, and put on a smile of success. Vice President Han, I moved everything here in one go. Just now, the armor was hanging on the side of the table leg. It's actually not that heavy. As she spoke, Zhuo Jingxi pretended to pat the dust off her palms and grinned. Vice President Han was amused. As expected of little Joie. We'll see the truth in the details. Although this isn't a big deal, your ability to adapt to the situation is really not bad. After taking the keys from Zhuo Jingxi, old Han drove away, leaving Zhuo Jingxi alone in the wind, at a loss as to what to do. Through the car window, looking at the dim yellow streetlights that kept receding, listening to old Han's heart-wrenching singing, Chen Guang thought of many things in his mind, but none of them were useful. I have no regrets in my life. That was my youth that turned to dust. That day in the God of Racing Cup, little Otto luckily escaped the tragedy of the nutrition pod in the God of Racing Cup by relying on the mosaic. But he could hide from the monk, but not the temple. He could hide now, but he could not hide forever. In the end, he was still trapped in such an unlucky armor. After old Han drove the car to the underground parking lot, he only moved his head from the driver's seat to the back to take a look at the armor, but he did not touch it again. He only muttered to himself, "Let little Shen pick it up tomorrow, I won't carry it home." Then, old Han got out of the car, locked the door, and the plateau red reverberated in the underground parking lot, gradually getting further and further away. After waiting for about 2 to 3 minutes, Chen Guang slowly straightened up, then with tears in his eyes, he painstakingly took off the armor on his body, piece by piece. His movements could not be stretched, and it was really difficult to take off the armor. It took more than 20 minutes, and Chen Guang felt like he was about to collapse, before he finally took off the last piece of armor. But this was not the end. He had to shrink his body, reassemble the armor, and return to the appearance he was lying down in. By the time he was done, it was almost midnight outside. Then, Chen Guang finally crawled forward to the driver's seat, opened the door from the inside, and breathed in a breath of fresh air, blowing away the salt stains left by the dried sweat on his body. He felt that a 3-hour sauna was nothing more than this, right? When he went back and weighed himself, he would lose at least 3 kilograms. But he could not leave yet, so he waited in the same place for another 2 minutes. Finally, he heard the Buick MPV's door lock click, and it locked automatically. Only then did he dare to leave boldly. After 2 steps, he sat down weakly, leaning against the pillar of the underground parking lot. No, I have to rest. Oh my God, it really feels like I've died once. It's more difficult than fighting with people in the sea of fleeting time. I've only seen 2 of the Void Mask's big moves today, and this retribution has come a little too fiercely. He suddenly thought of something, picked up his phone, and sent a text message to Zhuo Jingxi. "You've successfully escaped, everything is fine, go to sleep peacefully." Although he said so, Chen Guang's exciting journey today was not over, because there was a bearded man in a security uniform standing in front of him, holding a strong flashlight and shooting it at his eyes. "Kid, who are you? What are you doing here?" Chapter 138. Chen Guang took a few deep breaths, slowly stood up, shook off the salt on his body, and tossed his head in what he thought was a confident manner. "If I said I was here to look at the scenery, would you believe me?" Roughly half an hour later, Chen Guang was finally released from the security office in this district. Thank God, he had his student ID and ID with him. Once he explained his identity, he explained the English Premier League match that was being broadcasted on ESPN's English channel to these guys on the spot in the security office. In other words, he translated the ESPN commentator's extremely fast explanation into Chinese at an even faster speed. The security guards were immediately convinced, and didn't ask him how suspicious his actions were, nor did they try to get him to contact the Gokyo University teacher who lived in the neighborhood. With a shaken heart, Chen Guang walked out of the neighborhood, looked at the empty street outside, and then looked at the time on his phone. Damn, it was already 1 in the morning, and he felt even more melancholy. I pinched my fingers and calculated, at this time, it would cost at least 180 kwai to take a taxi back to school from here. Forget it, I'll just take 2 steps forward and ask for help. But according to my years of experience as an internet driver, at this time, normal drivers wouldn't accept an order from the city center to a suburban town like Wenxing Town, even if they knew that Gokyo University was there. Chen Guang didn't give up and sent out an order, maybe he could meet some abnormal people in the same industry? After waiting for about 20 minutes, he knelt down. In the end, there are still more normal people in this world. He swung the ham in his hand and walked along the riverside path at the edge of the neighborhood to the main road. When he thought about how he could only take a green taxi and pay the ridiculous night fare and an unknown amount of return fee, he felt a faint sense of sadness in his heart. This was really the greatest shame of an internet driver's life. Just as he was feeling sad, a shout suddenly came from the river in front of him. "Stop! Stop right there!" It was a man's loud shout. Chen Guang leaned slightly to the other side of the road, wanting to see what was going on. If curiosity could really kill a cat, cats would have long gone extinct in this world. My Lord Guang doesn't believe in that. Along the riverbank, they saw a tall, lean man leading the way, running wildly. In his hand, there was a cold glint that flickered under the illumination of the street lamp. It was clearly a murder weapon. Behind him, there were 7 or 8 people chasing after him desperately. Among the 7 or 8 people, 3 or 4 were in plain clothes, while the other 3 or 4 were in police uniforms. The police caught the thief? Chen Guang frowned and thought to himself, with my meddlesome personality, I'm afraid I won't be able to endure it. But I didn't take their salary, nor did I eat their meals. The tall man in front of me looked very fierce. If I rashly made a move and cut this guy, wouldn't I suffer a huge loss? While he was hesitating, there was another change. In the bushes by the river not far in front of Chen Guang, a strong figure suddenly rushed out. Without making a sound, it was like a hungry tiger pouncing on the skinny man who was running for his life. The figure rushed out like lightning, but the skinny man was extremely vigilant. He nimbly moved to the side and counterattacked with the short knife in his hand. Seeing that the situation was not good, the skinny man took 2 steps back and barely avoided it. Chen Guang's eyes turned. Damn, based on my years of experience, this must be a policewoman. No, I can't make another move. There's already a damn policewoman in my life. If there's another one, my short life will probably be ruined. Wu Tong. Be careful. Just as Chen Guang was letting his imagination run wild, a male policeman in plain clothes who was 3 or 4 meters away from the skinny man suddenly shouted. It's okay. Don't come up. Leave this little bastard to me. The strong voice immediately responded, but did not stop. He brazenly pulled out his baton and pounced on the skinny man again. Chen Guang was dumbfounded. What a coincidence. That woman is Wu Tong, and the man behind is Wang Long? Is this even possible? Wujing City is so big, and there are tens of thousands of good citizens. It's already late at night, and I accidentally came here. How could I bump into you? Big sister, it's a bit unreasonable of you to force the scene. In such a short period of time, Wu Tong and the skinny man had already determined the winner. Since the last battle with Brother Scar, Wu Tong had obviously put in a lot of effort. She used the upside-down part of the baton to knock the short knife out of the skinny man's hand. The skinny man lost his weapon and did not dare to fight again. He ran to the side, shook off Wu Tong, and ran in the direction of the main road, which happened to be in the direction of Chen Guang. Chen Guang was happy. This man is really a wonderful person. Since the credit is delivered to my door, I don't want to take it. Anyway, I have no weapon in my hand. He just stood on the side of the road like a telephone pole, not moving a bit. He covered his face with his hands, looking like a frightened person who did not know the truth. The tall skinny man fled in panic, but he saw a young man in front of him. He shouted, "Get out of my way." Wu Tong, who was behind him, did not see Chen Guang's face clearly because of the light. She also shouted, "Get out of my way. He's a vicious robber." Chen Guang pretended to come back to his senses. He was very frightened and moved to the side, but he did not let go of his hands that were covering his face. He said, "Okay, okay." Then, when the skinny man passed by him, he just silently stretched out his leg and tripped the man's foot. The unlucky robber fell straight to the ground. He rolled on the ground, endured the pain, and quickly tried to get up. He cursed, "I'll remember you. Wait for me." Before his voice died away, Chen Guang suddenly rushed to the man's side like lightning. He lifted his leg and used the tomahawk kick from above. His heel aimed at the man's waist. Pfft! This guy is really karma. He just threatened me and I'm done for. Chen Guang's kick was from a tricky angle, and the force was fierce. It hit the man's vital point. No matter how vicious the criminal was, he would instantly lose all his ability to resist. Chen Guang's reaction was quite fast. Without thinking, he covered his face and ran in Wu Tong's direction. Quickly cover his eyes. I don't want him to remember my face. Wu Tong was stunned at first. Chen Guang. Then, she immediately realized that she was in the middle of a case. She said, "Wait for me." Then, the violent woman rushed to the front and handcuffed the tall skinny man tightly. She pressed her knee against his back and pressed him down. Run? Where do you think you're going? The man had just recovered from the pain from Chen Guang's kick. He knew that there was no way he could struggle today. He turned his head and desperately looked in Chen Guang's direction. He thought fiercely, this brat actually dares to act bravely for a just cause. Wait for me to come out. I'll let you go and I'll be a good person for the rest of my life. F***ck. This brat really knows his stuff. He must be my greatest enemy. Chapter 139. At this time, Chen Guang had already pulled up his sweaty shirt and covered the bridge of his nose, revealing only his eyes. He looked sinisterly at the tall, lean man who was pinned to the ground. His face was full of an expression that was asking for a beating. Come on, come hit me. When Wang Long passed by Chen Guang, he only gave him a slight look. Then, following Chen Guang's thoughts, he rushed forward, took out a black burlap bag, and covered the wanted criminal's head. After everything was done, Wang Long and the others escorted the man away. Wu Tong used the excuse of resting to pull Chen Guang's butt to sit on a chair by the river. She interrogated him, "You brat, why aren't you going back to school in the middle of the night? Why are you strolling by the river? What are you up to? Did you do something bad to a girl from a good family?" Chen Guang glanced at her disdainfully. You should show some respect to good citizens who act bravely for a just cause. What kind of attitude is that? How dare you question my character? However, Chen Guang was thinking in his heart that he couldn't let her know the truth. After all, he wasn't the kind of person who would tell others about his misfortune. Anyway, I won't say it even if you beat me to death. You can guess however you want. Wu Tong pinched his shoulder in annoyance. I'm your sister, an elder. Of course, I have the right to control you. Bah! Since when did you become my sister? I don't acknowledge it at all. Chen Guang thought, if it weren't for the fact that I don't have a car and can't bear to spend money on a taxi, I would have waited for you to give me a lift back to Wenqing town. Who the hell would accompany you here talking nonsense? Just accept your fate. Anyway, what you said in Pan Zhang's ward that day, I admitted it all on the spot. Now you want to deny it? No way. Wu Tong chuckled. She loved to see Chen Guang fuming with rage, but there was nothing he could do about it. She felt that today was really fate. She went out to catch a thief, and she followed him all the way to the city center. It was even in the middle of the night, and she actually bumped into him. What made Wu Tong the happiest was that Chen Guang was now sweaty and smelly. Although Wu Tong said those words, she didn't think that he had a secret date with a girl. How could a date be so smelly? In fact, her heart was in a mess these past few days. She felt that it was very likely that she was sick, and very sick. That was why she practiced boxing with all her might. Only when she was bombarding the target would she be able to completely forget about those unimaginable thoughts in her mind. She still couldn't forget the strange incident that happened that night at the police station. Even if the bitter and unforgettable feelings at that time were long gone with the wind, the taste and feeling still lingered. The next day, when Chen Guang used her sister's name to scare Pan Jiang, Wu Tong didn't feel disgusted at all. Instead, she was secretly delighted and immediately accepted it. In retrospect, she found it unbelievable. Could it be that I really like him? The Prince Charming in her heart was obviously a tall and mighty unrivaled hero. What was so attractive about this young and ignorant brat? But no matter how she found thousands of reasons and thousands of excuses in her heart, she still couldn't convince herself to completely forget the palpitations of that night. She hadn't seen Chen Guang for the past few days, and from time to time, this brat's mischievous smile would appear in her mind. I'm simply a ghost. I'm possessed. Then today, she met him here, and coincidentally, she helped him a lot by catching a very fierce robber. Wu Tong absolutely didn't want to admit it, but she was really happy in her heart. She was especially relaxed, so she deliberately teased him like this. Forget it. You want me to recognize you as my god sister? Please, go on the internet and check what F***ck, sister, means. Chen Guang was a little regretful. Maybe he shouldn't have used this policewoman to show off in front of Pan Jiang that day. It seemed that he had invited trouble for himself. Sure enough, after listening to his excessive teasing, Wu Tong actually didn't get angry. She just blushed and slapped him on the shoulder. You impudent brat, you even dare to tease your sister? Believe it or not, I'll catch you and interrogate you. Chen Guang was dumbfounded. Damn it, there's definitely something wrong with her current state. Big sister, I'm teasing a good policewoman in public. Can't you be angry for me to see? Could it be that she really likes me? There's no reason for that. Didn't I also eat Liuli's spiritual secret technique? Now my acting skills are still in the negatives, but you've become so undignified. Chen Guang had forgotten that what Liuli gave him was only deep hypnosis, making him think that he was a movie king. What Liuli gave Wu Tong was more high-end, more valiant, and more emotional control. Of course, the two couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. There were a lot of coincidences that led to her current state. If Wu Tong was a man, even if she loved him to death at that time, as time passed, even if there was still some lingering feelings left, it would definitely be completely suppressed and erased by the unbearable disgust as time passed. But Wu Tong was a woman, and a virgin at that. No matter how stubborn she was, it couldn't change the fact that Chen Guang wasn't annoying. He was good-looking, had a great body, and although he was a little hot-tempered, he also had a sense of justice. Although it was impulsive to injure Pan Jiang, his motive was to uphold justice. No matter how tough Wu Tong was, she was still a normal woman. Coupled with the lingering feelings of emotional control, it was reasonable for her to have feelings for this handsome young college student who had a sense of justice. In the end, Chen Guang pinched his nose and acknowledged this cheap sister. After all, she was really quite beautiful. He took Wu Tong's wrangler back to Wenxing town, and Wu Tong sent him all the way to the school gate. When they passed by the school wall at the corner, Chen Guang got out of the car first. This brat actually climbed over the wall. Leaning against the car window, Wu Tong watched Chen Guang jump over the school wall with his butt in the air. Then, he nimbly flipped over the wall. Separated by the iron fence, he turned back and waved, then walked inside without looking back. Wu Tong's chin rested on the window as she watched the kid's back. In that instant, an emotion called reluctance surfaced in her heart. Then, she suddenly sat up straight and looked at her pale face in the rearview mirror. She slapped her beautiful face and said to herself, "I'm crazy." Dragging his exhausted body, Chen Guang finally returned to the dorm at 2:00 in the morning. He quietly stood at the door for a few minutes, and sure enough, he heard Lin Jingwei and Bai Nyangzi whispering to each other. When Chen Guang heard this, his balls ached. These two grandsons really didn't have anything good to say. He finally understood what it meant by bad friends being the hardest to deal with in this world. "Little Lin, don't you think Brother Guang's luck with women is a bit too good? Forget about when university's campus belle and class rep's son, it seems like even teacher Zhua has fallen for him." I keep feeling like our future is a bit bleak. We're too close to Brother Guang, and we hang out all day long. As long as a beauty appears in our social circle, we'll definitely be attracted to him. Just thinking about it makes me feel sad for myself. Shut up, Bai Nyangzi. You just need to like men. F***ck. Be careful, or I'll climb into your bed while you're asleep and F***ck. Chen Guang smiled knowingly. Little Lin was a good friend, and not as poisonous as Bai Nyangzi. Unexpectedly, after a short moment of silence, Lin Jingwei said, "That's right. He's not back yet, so Teacher Zhuo will probably be on sick leave tomorrow. Anyway, I'll go to the lab tomorrow and steal a bottle of sulfuric acid. If Gao Ya also likes him, I'll splash sulfuric acid on his face. F***ck. I'll chop you two grandsons to death." Chapter 140. Fiercely pushing open the door, Chen Guang strode in. Lin Bai and Bai Nianwei, who were very energetic in their writing, were dumbfounded. With the bright white moonlight shining in through the window, the two clearly saw the rather ugly expression on Chen Guang's face. "Oh my, Brother Guang. Why did you come back so late? You scared me to death." Bai Nyangzi laughed. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. "Yeah, if I didn't come back any later, you two would have written a book called Young Guang and Young Married Teacher Zhua." The two laughed awkwardly. Lin Jingwei's face was red. "How could that be? You can't blame us. It was you who came back late and caused a misunderstanding." Although Bai Nyangzi made a wild guess, our original intention was to bless you. In this era, teacher-student relationships aren't that important. Teacher Zhuo isn't that old, and he's very close to us. We all support you. Lie, continue to lie for me. I want to see how many flowers you can weave. Chen Guang pointed at Lin Jingwei. "Where's your sulfuric acid? How many liters do you need to drink? I've never seen such a shameless person." "Damn, it was you who said that Teacher Zhuo was going to call in sick tomorrow." Lin Jingwei's square face turned red, and he cursed his bad luck in his heart. How did they just happen to hear this part? Everyone thought that you wouldn't be coming back tonight. You're a bit unreasonable. Quietly guarding the door at 2 a.m, eavesdropping on us, it's impossible to guard against. Huff huff huff, the drunk Xiong heir was lucky enough to escape. After all, he was already this drunk and couldn't participate in the bedtime discussion. "If I don't poke you two upside down today, my name isn't Chen Guang." Chen Guang was too lazy to explain to these two that there was actually nothing going on between him and Teacher Zhuo. After all, if he told the truth, wouldn't it be even more awkward? Then, he sat down on his chair, took out a brand new pencil, and began sharpening it. It was said in Jianghu that many years ago, Chen Guang had a unique skill. People called it the pencil kill. It was extremely ferocious and had once set off a bloody storm in Jianghu. It was only after he had injured a classmate that he was hung up and beaten by his father for 2 hours that he sealed this unique skill in ice. This was already something that happened in junior high school. Today, he decided to restart his unique skills and teach Lin Jingwei and Bai Fan, the two fellows who had randomly arranged their stances. Seeing that he began to sharpen his pencil without saying a word, Lin Jingwei and Bai Fan were so scared that they almost peed their pants and jumped out of bed. This guy was really angry. Both of them had heard Chen Guang boast about the illustrious achievements of his pencil-killing technique. Now that the ice-sealing artifact had reappeared in the world, it was going to stir up a rain of blood again. The ones who were in danger were themselves. Not daring to delay any longer, the two of them jumped off the bed and pulled on Chen Guang's shoulders. "Oh, my brother Guang. Don't be like this, calm down. Brothers, don't you understand us? Didn't we learn our cheap mouths from you? How could we have thought that you would come back at this time and happen to hear us? Please be magnanimous and spare us." Bai Nyangzi was not only good at sharpening his tongue, but he was also good at begging for mercy. Lin Jingwei chuckled as he massaged Chen Guang's shoulders and legs. "Big brother Guang, slow down. Don't tire yourself out, and don't injure your hands. The injury on your right hand hasn't healed yet. It's not suitable for strenuous exercise. Go to bed early and rest. Chen Guang didn't even raise his head. Go and pour a glass of water for me. Of course, he didn't really want to poke these two people. Since he knew the danger of this kind of dangerous action, he wouldn't use it as a joke anymore. He just wanted to scare these two grandsons, so that they wouldn't be able to keep their mouths shut and make up all kinds of things about him. Lin Jingwei gave him a look, and Bai Nyangzi picked up the glass and ran out of the living room to find the water dispenser to pour water. When Bai Nyangzi came back with the water, Chen Guang was sitting there like a gold knife. He held a pencil that was half sharpened in one hand and a glass in the other. He looked at the two people fiercely. You guys, don't talk nonsense. My reputation doesn't matter. Think about it, if this kind of thing gets out, how can Teacher Zhua face others? Nothing happened to him, but his reputation was ruined for no reason. How much damage would that do to the girl? I say, you two are really too much. Am I such a shallow person? There must be a special reason why I came back so late today. I don't want to tell you, but it's definitely not what you're guessing. As Chen Guang lectured them, their crotches felt cold. They nodded again and again. After all, they were only wearing briefs, and the summer night was very cold. Do you really think I'm such a narrow-minded person? The two people shook their heads like a rattle drum. No, no. Brother Guang, you have a big heart. You're very magnanimous. Lin Jingwei said. Bai Fan nodded fiercely. Little Lin, you're right. I'll give you 10 likes. Chen Guang sighed. You guys, I really can't stand to see your duplicity. What's our relationship? How can I be angry when we're just joking around and making fun of me? But I really can't involve other women. Whether it's Teacher Zhua or Sun Xiaoxuan, it's not good for them. As for Wen, to be honest, you guys don't understand her. If you're lucky enough to see what she looks like when she uses her tricks, I can guarantee that you won't dare to make fun of her for the rest of your lives. Seeing his serious face, Lin Bai and Sun Xiaoxuan were convinced. Alright, you guys go to bed. I'll sleep in a bit. Chen Guang waved his hand domineeringly. Then, he picked up the cup and planned to drink some water before going to take a shower. Just as the cup reached his mouth, before the water even entered his mouth, his brain went numb and he suddenly felt a suction force. What? It's here. It's here. Thunder throwing Lu. So sudden. Without the slightest bit of precaution, without the slightest bit of apprehension, you just appeared in my world and brought me a pleasant surprise. Screw you. Damn. You came at this time. Don't make this kind of international joke. I'm acting cool right now. That's fine too. Maybe after this World in Cup, I'll become the strongest king of acting cool in history. That's fine too. That's not right. Isn't the proposition of acting cool too big? Seeing a spirit sky level World in Cup, I feel like it's not cool enough and can't handle it, right? Then what could it be? This time, I have a bad feeling. I feel like I'm going to be screwed. With a strong sense of confusion, Chen Guang was once again pulled into the World in Cup. It was still a vast expanse of whiteness. I don't care about anything else. I'll call for help first. Lioli. Our Lioli. Where are you? Come out and receive the guest. After calling twice, there was no response. Chen Guang's heart thumped again. That's not right. I bullied her so badly last time. This time, I'll probably beat her up until she's not even human anymore. Why don't I lower my stance a little and ease the relationship a little? Dear Emperor of the Azure, long time no see. I really miss you. Can you come out and chat with me? I'm your savior after all. I shoulder the mission of saving the great godly emperor. Can we talk nicely? After waiting for a long time, there was still no response. Chapter 141. The situation was already out of control, and Guang began to panic. Looking at the empty sea of clouds, Emperor of the Azure did not move at all. In Guang's heart, there was a touch of sadness and pain. Poor Liuli, in the end, she couldn't hold on until I saved her. She passed away just like that, passing away. This evil heavens, what kind of sin did they commit, to actually let such a beautiful and exposed girl die young? Until today, I have never really seen any substantial exposure. It is really a regret in my life. Forget it, for the next heavenly holy grail, let me go alone. Finally, it was about time, the real world in the cup began to summon. At this moment, Liuli's voice suddenly echoed in the air, busy. No time to reveal yourself. Save your divine power. Pray for your own good. Safe this time. Io, my dearest Emperor, you finally gave me a definite message. Wonderful, wonderful. Just based on your last sentence, I feel at ease. Although I don't know what is waiting for me, as long as it is safe, it is enough. Guang was faintly looking forward to it. Seeing how Emperor of the Azure looked as if she was facing a great enemy, in order to save that little bit of divine power, she actually didn't even bother to reveal herself. She must be undergoing some kind of great upgrade, right? Just as he was letting his imagination run wild, the pulling force of the world in the cup suddenly became stronger, and with a whoosh, he was pulled in. Coming out of the space-time tunnel, Guang thought that he would hit the surface of the water, but in the end, he hit hard on a wooden board that was as hard as iron. Groggily crawling up, Guang only had one thought in his mind: I swear, from now on, I will never drink Tai Guanyin again. Damn, this Tai Guanyin that had been soaked was really hard after it became bigger, like a steel plate. Obviously, this time in the world in the cup, he wouldn't get Liuli's long-distance guidance. Judging from her manner of speaking just now, there was no hope. But it didn't matter. She had already said that it would be safe and steady. Shaking his head, he regained his vision. Looking around, he took a good look at the surroundings of this world within the cup, and spat out a mouthful of blood. No matter how much I calculated, I couldn't predict it, and I couldn't guard against it day and night. In the end, I was tricked. The environment he was in now was similar to the world in Dota 2 Cup. However, the environment looked much better, and the scope of the world in the cup was much larger. The quality of the surrounding objects was no different from the real world. There was no mosaic at all. It was clear that after resting and recovering for the past few days, Liuli had indeed slowly controlled the after-effects of the realm of transient sea. Perhaps, this was the normal level of the heavenly spirit realm. It was about 200 meters in diameter, exactly the same as the real world, a real world in a cup. He had finally returned to normal. Come to think of it, although the repercussions of using the realm of transient sea was terrible, Guang really missed that high-end experience that was no different from the real world. Look at what was given in the end. A small broken fish pond with only one computer. The electrical circuit was still at the level of mosaic. An 8-bit racing god training ground? That feeling was basically like when one was used to playing large-scale 3D games, such as The Witcher 3, Raleigh 5, and other standalone games, and suddenly only had the feeling of holding a Tetris brick in one's hand. The past was unbearable. If it wasn't for those pencils floating on the surface of the water with unknown meaning, strange uses, and murderous intent, so many that they were like stars in the sky, Guang would have been happy. What the heck? It's not bad that the game's special effects have been restored to full value, but don't tell me you want me to play with this pool of pencils for the rest of my life? What did I want to do with the pencils just now? Poke people. Don't tell me you really want me to practice the ultimate godly skill of poking people with pencils? Since the literally flying dagger, there was another godly weapon added to the list of weapons. Little chin pencils? Doctor. My liver hurts so much. I feel like I don't have enough blood to vomit. Oh my God, what do you want me to do? At this moment, the world in a cup changed again. In addition to the pencils, another godly weapon appeared in front of him. That's right, it was a pencil sharpener. As a genius with high IQ in the new era, Chen Guang immediately saw through the real intention of this world in a cup. Good, it's not for me to practice the little Chen pencils. Then, I was sharpening pencils just now, so what I want to practice is the ultimate skill of sharpening pencils. Chen Guang felt that his ability to complain might not be enough. The dignified 3,000 worlds, such a high and mighty peerless godly weapon, such an amazing cheat, one world to practice a godly skill, such a cool and heaven-defying special effect. After all this time, you want to train me into the strongest pencil sharpener in history? Or is this called the strongest pencil sharpener in history? Forgive the old man's heart for not being able to accept such a use effect. Well, no matter how strong the desire to complain in his heart was, no matter how painful it was, Chen Guang could only accept his fate. He expressionlessly grabbed the pencil sharpener in front of him, and then picked up a pencil from the water. He gritted his teeth and started sharpening. After a long time, the first pen was sharpened. The nib was round, and the cut of the shaft was neat. It was a perfect conical shape. It was simply a work of art. An electronic voice sounded in the air. Qualified. Sharpening index increased by 198 points away from the next level. Chen Guang slapped his own face. You are really advanced and considerate. Sharpening index? Why don't you call it killing index? I kneel for you. The second pen, with a very unhappy mood, was sharpened in 2 or 3 moves. Of course, it was crooked, and even the nib was cut off twice. Unqualified. Sharpening index decreased by 199 points away from the next level. You won, and you can even decrease it. It was I who lost, so please accept my kneel. More than 2 hours later, the sharpening index increased by 1. The level was upgraded. 99 points away from the next level. I leveled up just like that. And then? There were no changes. No hints. No fancy sharpening techniques. Chen Guang used to think that Dota 2 was the most boring world in a cup. After all, although the racing god training ground was moving, it was actually quite interesting. But today, he finally realized that he was wrong. Ridiculously wrong. There was no lower limit to the world in a cup. Don't try to challenge its limits, because it would always give you a head-on blow when you weren't expecting it. This time, I've lost in a complete mess. God. At least give me something different for the 3rd level. This kind of setting will give me a psychological barrier. 3 days later, the sharpening index increased by 1. The level was upgraded. 99 points away from the next level. Still, there were no changes. I don't know how many levels there will be after this level. To be honest, I might not be able to survive this time. Anyway, I have a sharpener in my hand. Why don't I use this thing to slit my neck? After gesturing at his neck for a long time, Chen Guang couldn't bring himself to do it. He felt that he could still save himself. Half a month later, the sharpening index increased by 1. The level was upgraded. 99 points away from the next level. Thank God, at least it was a little different. Even if it was just a little change, it was enough to move him to tears. Chapter 142. In the end, he passed the horrible sharpening test. Don't ask him how many pencils he sharpened. He said he didn't want to answer and didn't want to remember. In short, if someone said that he was impatient, he would definitely slap that person's face. Idiot, you're facing a person who has practiced sharpening a pencil to an unprecedented level. He's the strongest person in history, and you dare to say that I don't have any growth potential? That's right, from now on, Master Chen Guang will undoubtedly be the best sharpener in the history of the Earth and the entire universe. The best sharpener in history. Although it was useless. When he came out of the world in the cup, he didn't see Emperor of the Azure. The woman decided not to appear today. Light flashed and he appeared in the bedroom again. Lin Jingwei and Bai Nyangzi had just climbed to the bed and were about to go up the ladder. In the real world, only 10 seconds had passed. Chen Guang silently put down the cup and pulled out a tissue from the box next to him. He discreetly wiped his eyes. Fu**k, I actually wet my eyes looking at these two grandsons' briefs. This is so embarrassing. Chen Guang sat on the chair in a daze. After adjusting his mood for a long time, he slowly got up and walked to the bathroom to take a cold shower. This time, the world in the cup had a big impact on him. He wouldn't be able to recover without sleeping. Standing under the faucet and feeling the cold water, Chen Guang sorted out his thoughts. To be honest, it wasn't entirely a bad thing to be cheated by the world in the cup. At least it made Chen Guang realize the fact that this thing really wanted to cheat people. It was completely unreasonable and had no bottom line. In the past, he naively thought that although this thing could appear at any time and instantly detect his thoughts to determine the final form of the world in the cup, it should at least be slightly more normal. So far, even the most worthless and meaningless Dota 2 hellish training had allowed him to reach the peak of the game. Even if his actual combat strength could only last for 1 or 2 matches, it was more than enough to show off in public. So much so that he let down his guard. What the world in the cup had done to him tonight was like a spray of cold water from a faucet on his head, instantly waking him up. I can't relax. If he touched this cup while taking a dump, he would really become the king of anal prolapse and die. Damn, a normal human wouldn't drink water while taking a dump, right? Am I not scaring myself? Oh, not bad. Chen Guang slapped his forehead. His brain had short-circuited. He had been afraid of something that had never happened for a long time. That's right, as long as I don't become the king of anal prolapse, is there anything on earth that I can't afford to offend? Even the setting of being the strongest pencil sharpener in history, I gritted my teeth and endured it. Was there any difficulty that I couldn't overcome? Happy. If it weren't for the fact that it was late at night, Chen Guang would have whistled twice to celebrate. After taking a shower and lying on the bed, he began to plan again. It had been 2 to 3 weeks and the world in the cup had only appeared 4 times. Damn, that was the 3,000 worlds. The old man pinched his fingers and calculated. According to the current speed, to complete the 3,000 worlds test, damn, it would take at least 60 years. Now that I am 20 years old, doesn't that mean that when I am 80 years old, I will still be doing missions bitterly? Damn, at that time, even if I become the master of the 3,000 worlds that Liuli mentioned and have trillions of cute girls, I am already so old. Even if I have the heart to kill a thief, I will not be able to turn the situation around. Could it be that I can only enjoy the so-called deceptive, spiritual intercourse? I don't want Play-Doh, I just want to fight to my heart's content in close combat. Thinking of this, his heart felt really cold. It was so depressing that he couldn't even muster up his energy. Wait, I seem to have forgotten something. What I said just now was already a very good situation. According to the so-called naughty nature of the so-called divine weapon upgrade, the later it was, the longer the upgrade time would be. Could it be that my glorious responsibility as a savior will eventually be defeated by time? Will I die of old age before I can save the person? The dignified savior of the Emperor of the Azure in the endless divine realm failed the mission because he died of old age. Such a setting revealed a complete sense of despair. Unfortunately, Liuli seemed to be in seclusion now. Otherwise, Chen Guang really wanted to call her out and have a good talk with her about the insights he had just thought of to see if she had prepared any backup plans. Thinking about it carefully, she couldn't be so deceptive that she couldn't even think of such a simple reason. Could it be that since I became a savior, I was destined to live forever? Then wouldn't I have to be like the protagonists in some TV shows and movies, constantly watching my loved ones grow old and die one by one? Professor Dew from the stars? Wouldn't this plot be a bit too torturous? Nowadays, this kind of sadomasochistic plot is not popular. In a daze, Chen Guang didn't have the ability to continue letting his imagination run wild. After all the torment today, he was really exhausted. As he lay down, he closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. After a long time, in the middle of the night, on the writing table under his bed, the heavenly grail was faintly emitting a milky white light. The crazy laughter of the Emperor of the Azure echoed in the grail like a ghost, but the volume was as soft as a mosquito. Even Chen Guang, who was on the upper bunk, couldn't hear it. Wahahaha. I've succeeded. I've finally succeeded. I finally don't have to live like a prisoner on death row anymore. I can go online now. Ha ha ha. I've changed from a prisoner under house arrest to a female otaku who can't go out. This is a huge leap in quality. The naked Emperor of the Azure's portrait danced on the heavenly grail. If someone saw that the portrait on the grail could actually dance, they would definitely be scared out of their wits. Fortunately, Chen Guang wore the Hello Kitty jacket for her, so there was no risk of her being exposed. When this crazy woman finally settled down, the decorative painting on the wall of the grail suddenly froze. Shortly after, a white fiber as thin as hair slowly extended out from the finger of the decorative painting, extending along the side of the grail all the way down to the table. Following that, it crawled along the table all the way down to Chen Guang's computer mainframe and plunged into it. This wasn't the end. After waiting for a while, another white fiber extended out and followed the steel pipe that was one with the bed. Like a creeper, it quietly flipped over Chen Guang's head and pierced into his phone that was placed on the bedside table. After a brief flash of light, the two fibers gradually dimmed and disappeared. The Emperor of the Azure snapped her fingers in the Grail world. It's done. Shortly after, she muttered to herself, it seems like it takes a lot of divine power to maintain the internet. My lustrous feather dress? Forget it, I don't care anymore. I can't hold it in anymore. Going online is important. There's nothing more important in this world than going online. No one knew what the Emperor of the Azure planned to do online. The only thing they could be sure of was that the data on Chen Guang's phone was definitely going to explode. Chapter 143. The next day, Chen Guang did not wake up early. When he opened his eyes, it was already past 10 in the morning. He was woken up by Nyangzi's shrill voice. These two grandsons were restless the moment they woke up. Nyangzi was lying next to Xiong-er's head in the form of a golden-haired lion king, providing a gentle and caring roar to wake him up. However, Xiong had been drunk all night and was in a good state. Nyangzi's roar could do nothing to him. Chen Guang opened his sleepy eyes and watched Nyangzi's various performances. He felt that this guy had ulterior motives. On the surface, he seemed to be tormenting Xiong-er, but he was secretly taking revenge on him for scaring him last night. If I didn't know you were narrow-minded, would have been fooled by you. What are you howling for? Do you see my fist that's as big as a clay pot? Do you believe that I can turn you into a national treasure? Chen Guang roared in annoyance. Nyangzi turned around and chuckled. Oh, Master Guang is awake? Do you need me to buy you breakfast? Chen Guang thought for a moment and nodded. Sure, I'll go back to sleep. Bring me a bowl of porridge and 4 steamed buns. Lin Jingwei finished washing up and walked in from the door. He asked, one more than usual? Chen Guang spat in his heart. How could this guy be so observant? Could it be that the real gay guy in the dormitory was not Nyangzi, but this guy? I'm still growing. Eating more is useless. What do you guys know? I'm going to sleep for a while more. After saying that, Chen Guang fell down again. It was rare that he did not have any classes in the morning. It was the perfect time to laze in bed in the hot summer. Of course, it didn't matter if he had classes or not. The afternoon class was a big class for hundreds of people. Chen Guang also planned to skip it. Don't ask me why I'm so cool. The king of truancy has always been domineering. If I don't mention names, I'll just kneel at the teacher's door and beg for forgiveness. In the end, he didn't sleep well. It was rare for Queen Wenwen to call him personally, so he didn't dare to ignore it. Chen Guang, where have you been these days? I don't see you playing any games, and you don't come to the library either. Are you trying to disappear with me? Queen Wenwen's voice sounded very unhappy. The consequences were very serious, which made Chen Guang vaguely remember the scene when this woman put down all the hooligans in less than 10 seconds. Although I can be considered half an expert now, compared to this female Tyrannosaurus, Chen Guang felt that he could probably live for 30 seconds. Not to mention, with second Uncle Wen's inner force, although Chen Guang had never asked, he knew that Wenwen's skills were not as simple as they seemed on the surface. He quickly sat up straight and shook his head fiercely to clear his mind. Before he officially opened his mouth, Master Chen Guang first organized his thoughts so that he wouldn't spill something that he shouldn't say. You don't know? Yesterday, our class received a group of foreign guests. They're very influential. They're professors and top students from MIT. Recently, our whole class has been working around the clock on this matter. Everyone is very tired, and I haven't been idle either. I helped to prepare the thesis. I have to say, the reception yesterday was not bad. The professor from MIT seemed to appreciate the thesis that our class wrote. Chen Guang chuckled. On the other end of the phone, Wenwen spat, You? You even helped to prepare the thesis? Aren't you more of a hindrance? Chen Guang wasn't convinced. Let me tell you. Don't look down on me. I'm the main force. The main force serving tea and water. Fine, you saw through me. The thesis is mainly done by Sun Xiaoxuan and the others. Us boys are just assistants. However, this is for the glory of the country in the school, so we definitely have to help. It didn't affect my revision for CT4. After all, we were receiving foreign guests. I studied my English along with the thesis. The best way to lie in this world was to use half-truths. Chen Guang understood the essence of this. Even if he was seen through in the future, he could still argue that Miss Wen had a problem with her comprehension. He didn't purposely hide it from her. Well, this way, he could avoid getting beaten up. It was better to be safe than sorry. All right then. I was worried that I would disturb your studies. Since you've been reading recently, come out and relax with me today. It's a balance between work and rest. I'll give you 10 minutes. Hurry up and get dressed. I'll wait for you at the school gate. Let's go straight to the internet cafe. My hands are itchy. It turned out that when university's campus bell calling to express her condolences was fake. Her hands were really itchy. To be honest, Chen Guang's hands were a little itchy too. He immediately put on his clothes quickly. When he was halfway through putting on his clothes, the hungover Xiong suddenly sat up straight on the bed like an alarm clock. Then, he turned his face like a zombie and looked at Chen Guang. He said in a muffled voice, Good morning, Brother Guang. Emicham, thanks for your hard work, Uncle Bear. After putting on his clothes, Lin Jingwei and Bai Nyangzi came back with a big bag each. It must be said that Lin Jingwei really had the gift of being a good family man. He even thoughtfully bought breakfast for Xiong. It was just nice. However, when the third grandson heard that Chen Guang planned to run away with the buns and porridge, he became very curious about where he was going. Chen Guang had no choice but to stand them up again. He felt guilty, so he told them honestly that he was going to play a two-person game with Wenwen. The three of them did not agree. Even Xiong, who had just sobered up, became energetic and insisted on going. After all, Chen Guang's amazing Dota skills had deeply impressed the three frogs in the well. They really wanted to know how scary it would be after Chen Guang and Wenwen, the two experts, played a two-person game in the internet cafe. It would definitely be a storm in the high levels, and countless heroes would fight to bow down to them. Chen Guang could not dissuade them, so he could only pinch his nose and agree. Let me tell you guys, I won't bring you three noobs. After all, I and Wenwen are playing in the high levels with more than 5,000 points. Not long ago, Chen Guang was humiliated by these three players with 4,000 points. Now, he could use this arrogant tone to call them noobs. After enduring 3 months of hellish training, wasn't it for this moment? The three of them nodded their heads like chicks pecking at rice. Observing and learning is the main thing, and getting close to the school bell is the secondary thing, Lin Jingwei said with a smile. Hey, is it elegant? F***ck. Stop it. I was just joking. Don't panic, the call didn't go through. Chen Guang pushed Lin Jingwei away. Alright, stop it. When university school bell is going to flip out if we drag this out any longer. The four of them rushed to the school gate while munching on their buns. On the way, Chen Guang suddenly stopped in his tracks. He was glad that he was careful and almost messed things up. Right, there's one more thing. You guys must remember. The three of them saw him acting like he was facing a great enemy and thought he had a big secret. When I see Wen later, I can't let her know that my English has changed drastically and is no longer the same as before. Remember, it's very important. Why? Bai Nyangzi scratched his head in confusion. The other two were also confused. Xiong asked, don't you like to show off? This is a very good opportunity. Chen Guang kicked him. The secret of the heavens must not be revealed. In any case, all of you better remember this. Whoever dares to leak the secret will be my enemy for life. Chapter 144. Although they did not understand his intentions, the three of them felt that he must be plotting something when they saw how serious he was. They all swore to the heavens that they would not betray their brother's trust. Otherwise, they would die a horrible death. Alright, since you guys are so sincere, I'll show you what it means to be the strongest duo of hacks in history. Miss Wen said 10 minutes, so they did not dare to waste a second. When they rushed to the school gate, they checked their watches and arrived at the 10-minute mark. Chen Guang quickly explained, these three grandsons insisted on coming with us to broaden their horizons. They wanted to see how powerful we are when we're playing against each other. I couldn't even stop them, so we wasted some time. Xiong stuck his head out from the side with a face full of admiration. When university's campus bell is still as beautiful as ever. Our school's iron gate is practically blossoming with flowers. Bai Nyangzi jumped excitedly. That's right. Needless to say, while Wen was waiting for them at the school gate, many people had already bumped their heads into the lampposts one after another. Today, she was in high spirits. She wore a pair of tight waistcoats, a white shirt and a black waistcoat. Coupled with her refreshing long hair and her tall, slender, and plump figure, she looked like a strong woman. Wen smiled at Chen Guang and waved her hand nonchalantly. Stop dawdling, let's go. The ignorant and fearless Lin Jingwei, Bai Nyangzi, and Xiong did not know that Chen Guang had already pushed them to the gates of hell. If when university's campus bell really ran out of patience, it would be the fault of these three burdens. The five of them plunged into the internet cafe. When they entered, some of the ignorant and pitiful youngsters looked up. The five of them entered in unison, and there was an outrageously beautiful girl in the middle. They all looked at them curiously. It was another team of 5. However, they actually had a girl with them, and she was so pretty. I curse you guys to make the girl beg for death. Chen Guang and Wen were already used to these people's expressions, so they didn't think much of it. This was the first time that Lin Jingwei and the other two were tagging along, so they weren't used to it. After all, Chen Guang was a tragedy in the past. Wen's training with him was called weight-bearing training. Of course, she wouldn't let these 3 grandsons come to the internet cafe to watch him being tortured to death in the high levels. Now that he was different from before, he dared to bring the 3 of them out. These short-sighted fools, they must think of us as the babysitter clan. Bai Nyangzi pinched his throat and said unhappily. Lin Jingwei, on the other hand, was calm. He smiled coolly and said, these pitiful mortals don't understand that the true glory of babysitters is when Brother Guang is babysitter. Chen Guang sat in his booth and looked askance at these 3 pitiful fools. They didn't know how dangerous it was to tease when university's campus bell. They were dancing on the tip of a knife. Although the three grandsons had also turned on their computers, they didn't plan to sit down and fight. Instead, they surrounded Chen Guang and Wenwen, planning to get close to the people's gods. The most painful wait was the time before the computers were turned on in the internet cafe. Chen Guang and Wenwen were bored to death and felt uncomfortable. Especially Chen Guang. He thought of the world in the sharpening cup last night and thought, this isn't right. Every time I learned a godly skill in the world in the cup, would immediately use this godly skill to show off. Although the setting of being the best pencil sharpener in history was useless, it could be used to show off. If I don't show off, how can I live up to the miserable days and nights I spent with the sharpener? I can't let my hard work go to waste. Bai Nyangzi, I have a task for you. Go to the internet cafe counter and find me a pencil sharpener and a pencil sharpener. Although Bai Nyangzi didn't know what he was going to do, seeing that he was about to show off his godly skill in Dota, Bai Nyangzi went to run the errand. The internet cafe counter was out of stock. Fortunately, there was a snack shop downstairs. When Bai Nyangzi ran back, Chen Guang and Wenwen were already complaining about the game's matchmaking system. The matchmaking system was very friendly and considerate. From time to time, it would give a big surprise. The matchmaking time ranged from 1 minute to half an hour. Before the successful matchmaking interface popped up, you would never know when he would give you a surprise or a tragedy. Chen Guang thought that the game operator must be considerate of the majority of players. Long-term high-intensity games were not good for the physical and mental health. They would force players to rest for 10 to 20 minutes from time to time to help the majority of players have appropriate time to rest during the intense game. They could empty their minds and think about life. Only the heavens knew when he would be matched, so he had to kill some time first. Taking the pencil and knife, Chen Guang mysteriously smiled and said, "Lads, let me show you guys a divine technique." Everyone saw his mysterious look and then looked at the thing in his hand. Even Goddess Wenwen had a puzzled expression on her face. Taking a deep breath, Chen Guang said loudly, "Hey! Watch carefully." Immediately, his eyes emitted a dazzling cold light. His aura instantly rose and shot into the sky. Not bad. After all, he was a pencil sharpening grandmaster. Even if he was not a grandmaster, he was still a grandmaster. A grandmaster of a generation had his own bearing. Chen Guang's eyes widened in anger. Holding the knife in his right hand, he slashed down fiercely. Receive the shock of my world-shocking skill. In a flash, the moment his pencil sharpener touched the tip of the pencil, countless sawdust flew like snow and scattered all over the ground. When the smoke and dust dissipated, only a perfectly round nib was left. It was fresh out of the oven and looked easy to write. It was very awesome and could definitely draw a perfect arc on the paper. This was a work of art that was as perfect as Venus. Chen Guang used less than 3 seconds to finish it. There was a calm and elegant smile on his face. It was hot and cool. Frogs at the bottom of a well, are you scared by my scary style? I hope you can face the bleak and miserable life in the future correctly. How about it? I'm asking you, am I handsome? Am I cool? Do you want to learn? F***ck off. This was Wenwen's response. It's useless. Lin Jingwei commented. Brother Guang, you must have practiced this for 17 to 18 years, right? Amazing. But I don't want to learn. As expected of Xiong'er. Is it the police uncle? Someone is acting cool here. It's so glaring, the situation is out of control. Bai Nyangzi actually made the call. After a while, when the interface of the successful match popped up, everyone's expression immediately changed, and they instantly became incomparably serious. A thick murderous aura emanated from Chen Guang and Wenwen. It shot up into the sky and almost smashed a hole in the internet cafe's ceiling. This super strong duo of black players would finally reappear in the world. The Chinese Dota world was going to be turbulent again. No one noticed that in the heavenly holy grail that Chen Guang had placed in front of the computer monitor, Emperor of the Azure's fingers and eyes were glowing with a terrifying light. The black Batman mug cover, coupled with the Hello Kitty mug cover inside, was a double layer of protection. It wouldn't leak and wouldn't be exposed. She could move it however she wanted. What? Someone said that he couldn't change the mug cover before? Stop joking. Master Guang was so smart. Why did he have to take off the Hello Kitty? He could use one mug for 2 mugs. He had no choice. That was how he could be so willful when he was rich. Chapter 145. About 40 minutes passed. He looked at the dazzling words, Heavenly Brilliance's Victory, on the screen. Chen Guang's hand that was holding the mouse froze. He had a blank look on his face. He did not understand what had happened at all. That was because he was on Yi Jie's side, the losing side. Wenwen's face was also blank. She had played this game for many years, but had never encountered such a strange game. From start to finish, she did not feel anything out of the ordinary. Wenwen, who was in charge of the mid lane, played the black bird. Her performance was stable. She suppressed in the early stages, fought in the middle, and carried in the late stages. She was like a stabilizing force. Chen Guang, who was in the center position, chose the Phantom Assassin, a hero with explosive power. In the early stages, with the cooperation of his teammates, he completely destroyed the opponent's disadvantageous path. In the middle stages, he relied on his godlike skills and awareness to kill the opponent, escape from death, or counterattack in a desperate situation. We have a huge advantage this round. We have a huge advantage this round. We have a huge advantage this round. We will definitely win this round. Watch and fight. But in the end, the strongest pair of black birds in history lost this round. They actually lost. The people who lost were baffled and confused. The reason was that in the last round of the team battle, the opponent was sleepwalking from start to finish. The Dark Sage, who did not contribute as much as the soldiers of Heavenly Brilliance, suddenly stood up and blocked in front of Chen Guang's Phantom Assassin. As a high damage output late game, Chen Guang decisively flashed forward and prepared to send him on his way. Then the problem was, I attacked 18 times in a row, and none of them were critical hits. What does this mean? This guy was so tough that he was unreasonable. He was as disgusting and annoying as a dog's skin plaster. Even when all of his teammates were lying on the ground, Chen Guang still could not kill the Dark Sage who was stronger than a cockroach. In the end, the opponent counterattacked and took away the base. Throwing away the mouse, Chen Guang turned to look at the people behind him and asked, "Did I play perfectly this round?" The 3 nodded. Perfect. Don't you think my mechanics are cool? So cool that I can fly. Did I make any mistakes? No. Then why do you think that's the case? Why did he lose? Bai Nyangzi analyzed, maybe, it's because we didn't wash our faces before we left, so your face is too black. Chen Guang covered his face, feeling an indescribable pain in the ass. He had thought that he could easily close his eyes and kill everyone, but he didn't expect that he would have such a bad start and get hit in the knee by an arrow. Director, this is a little different from the script I imagined. I want to stop acting. The other side must have used an anti-crit cheat. The opponent was a cheater. Wenwen, on the other hand, twisted her neck, rubbed her fingers, and gritted her teeth. This lady doesn't believe this today. Again. Are you okay? Of course, she still remembered Chen Guang's nausea. Chen Guang carefully thought about his current condition. Although he felt a little uncomfortable, he could still bear it. He nodded and said, "All right, one more." Half an hour later, when their base once again fell under the enemy's siege, Chen Guang exploded. Boom. Unable to care about anything else, Chen Guang threw down the mouse and rushed to the internet cafe's toilet. The other 4 were already used to his behavior, but they couldn't understand the huge victory of Nightmare on the computer monitor. In this game, Chen Guang and Wen Wen were on the Sky Brilliance side. The development of the plot was almost the same as the previous game. They had all kinds of advantages in the early stages, and with Wen Wen's nearly 8,000 points, Chen Guang's strength as the strongest player in history, and the 5,000 groups, it was impossible for them to meet an opponent that was too difficult to deal with. But in the end, there was still such a person who fiercely stood up and pulled the unstoppable Chen Guang to the ground, his mouth full of mud. Wen Wen frowned as she looked at that slightly familiar ID. Then, she returned to the game interface and looked at the game record of the previous game. She discovered an exceptionally surprising fact. In 2 consecutive games, the person who had successfully suppressed Chen Guang's performance was actually the same person. It was an unknown player with the ID Jiangliua. Lin Jingwei and the other 2 also saw that something was amiss. Bai Niangzi deftly searched for this person's battle record on his computer, and his face was even more bewildered. Strange, this person has no previous match record. It's a completely new ID that was directly matched with Wen University's Campus Bell and Brother Guang, and in 2 consecutive games. There's no reason for that. Could it be that the server is targeting you? Lin Jingwei also expressed his bewilderment. Even if it's really the almighty Smuff, there's no reason for this kind of newly registered ID to be matched with your high-level group. There's something fishy going on. Wen Wen waved her hand indifferently. Forget it. Whether it's the server targeting us or Jiangliua targeting me and Chen Guang, it doesn't matter. In any case, playing games is to relax. Although winning or losing is important, losing isn't a big deal. It's not like we haven't lost before. Chen Guang had thrown up in the toilet, and by the time he had run over, he had already put on a pair of sunglasses. After 2 consecutive games, the after effects had flared up again. Walking over to the computer, he pulled Wen Wen to run away. We can't play anymore, we can't play anymore. Let's call a truce for today and fight another day. Wen Wen wasn't in a hurry to get up. Instead, she forced him to stare at the monitor and asked, "Have you seen this ID before, Jiangliua? He's the one who defeated you in these 2 games." Chen Guang clenched his teeth and stared at the ID, then went to Bai Niangzi's computer to look at this person's battle record. He shook his head repeatedly. I've never seen him before. I don't know where he came from. Although he looked calm on the surface, in fact, no one could understand the stormy waves in his heart. He wasn't blowing his own trumpet. After going through hellish training, he claimed to be the world's number 2, but no one really claimed to be the world's number 1. So here was the problem. This time, he had indeed completely and utterly lost to the same person. Twice. This was simply a human tragedy. Although the other side had only fought him head-on in the later stages of the game and had always looked like he was at a disadvantage, that person had, in the end, used the position of a soy sauce to restrain him, the main carry. Clearly, he had the advantage, beating the other side until he covered his head and scurried away like a rat, but he just couldn't send him back to the spring. Instead, he had been disrupted so much that he couldn't attack, which ultimately led to his team's defeat and the loss of the game. What exactly went wrong? Why do I feel that this person called Jiangliua has completely seen through my every move? My operation can be said to be at the peak of perfection, but that Jiangliua is equally meticulous and even better than me. Chen Guang simply couldn't understand. This opponent was ridiculously strong, simply exceeding the limits of human beings. If it was just one failure, it could still be attributed to chance, but 2 failures in a row was enough to explain the problem. The others hadn't reached Chen Guang's realm, so they couldn't see clearly what was strange about it. They just thought that this was an ordinary losing streak. After all, no matter how strong a professional player was, it was impossible to dominate a random game forever, and losing streaks were even more common. But Chen Guang clearly knew that things weren't so simple. There was something fishy going on here. Chapter 146. Forcing himself to endure the discomfort, Chen Guang opened his game account and sent a friend request to Jiang Liuwa. Regardless of whether the other party accepted it or not, he immediately got offline and ran away. Taking a second look at the game interface, he vomited stomach acid all over the ground. Chen Guang and Wenwen were leaving, and Bai Nyangzi and the other two were no longer in the mood to stay. Today's feng shui was unfavorable, so it was better to stay at home instead of playing games. Chen Guang's mind was full of Jiang Liuwa's matter, which had dealt him a huge blow. He had always believed that the ability that he had trained in the world within a cup would be flawless and invulnerable. He would definitely be the strongest in history. But in the end, while playing Dota today, he had been cured. It seemed like a trivial matter, but it had made him start to doubt his entire life. Could it be that in addition to me, the controller of the cheat, there is another non-human being in this world who receives the same treatment as me? F***CK. I refuse to accept this. Even if there really is such a person, how senseless must you be to come to the game to beat me up? You won a game against me, and I won't lose a single cent. At that moment, Chen Guang had no idea that in the realm and cup of the heavenly Holy Grail, a very inelegantly dressed goddess empress was going crazy with joy. Oh my, this small low-end plane can actually give this empress such a big surprise? This is really unexpected. These mortals are so weak that even this empress doesn't want to ridicule them, but their imagination is really amazing. Is this the wisdom of ants? Emperor of the Azure was rocking back and forth with laughter, but no one paid attention to her. After all, before Chen Guang had entered this huge realm in cup, she had been the only one there. If Chen Guang had seen this scene, he would definitely have regarded her as a lunatic. To borrow a saying that people on Earth often say, city people really know how to play. The longer he stayed by Chen Guang's side, the more he successfully connected to the internet last night. Finally, he did not have to waste time and energy and waste a large amount of divine power to probe and sense the outside world. Lioli understood the methods of the modern world. From the high and mighty God power perception, it became a more low-key, luxurious, meaningful, practical, and efficient way of consuming data. Surfing the internet. This unprecedented retreat allowed her to be like a fish in water. It was like a dragon returning to the sea, a bird flying freely in the sky. From last night until now, Emperor of the Azure had lost count of how many jokes she had read on the internet and how many popular new languages she had learned. Things like exploding manga, unexpectedly, reporting to boss, 100,000 cold jokes, hip-hop quartet, the complete collection of Stephen King's movies. Well, she hadn't had time to watch these yet, but she had written them down and planned to read them later. But this still wasn't what made her happiest. Today, when she saw Chen Guang and Wenwen playing games, she couldn't help sneaking into the internet and giving it a try. She created an ID called Jiang Luhua, which had the word Lu in it, and put herself in front of Chen Guang to have fun twice in a row. She was astonished. She simply admired the Earthling's entertainment spirit from the bottom of her heart. In her long career as a divine emperor, she had seen all kinds of storms and tried all kinds of strange ways of playing. But in the endless realm of the gods, billions of gods pursued greater power. Their overly powerful selves often put the cart before the horse when developing entertainment methods. The so-called leisure, to put it bluntly, was still cultivation. No matter how powerful they couldn't focus on the right things. It wasn't like Earth, where there was a group of people who exhausted their wisdom and worked together just to make a relaxing, enjoyable, and addictive game. The two were simply not on the same level. The moment Lioli started playing, she was completely addicted to the game. At the same time, she even tortured old Master Chen Guang. Why was it so fun? If I wasn't a dignified divine emperor, would have knelt down in front of the person who made this game. Please accept my 10 billion-year-old good kneeling. It's a pity that Chen Guang's cell phone network is too unstable, so it's really inconvenient to connect to the game. Forget it, I'll play it when he's asleep at night. Anyway, I have nothing to do, and watching a video on the 4G network isn't a problem, so I'll watch it first. Unexpectedly, right? Master Guang's cell phone data was on the latest high-speed train heading north, gradually getting farther and farther away. Sadly, Liuli was annoyed and even blocked the text messages from 10086, who always sent her text messages to disturb her watching movies. If Qin Guang knew that he wasn't abused by another non-human with a cheat, but by his own cheat, he would probably vomit a few more liters of blood. Oh, he would probably vomit a few more liters of blood when he had to pay the phone bill next month. After all, when he first entered university, he was still a middle-aged rich second-generation heir. In order to show his status, he had specially applied for a post-paid phone card, so it wouldn't be suspended because of arrears. This time, he was probably going to suffer a heavy loss. On the other hand, as soon as Qin Guang and the other four walked out of the internet cafe with a heavy heart, they ran into a punching bag. Strictly speaking, the dozen or so young men with stud earrings and weird hairstyles standing in front of the five of them were Wenwen's punching bags. Perhaps she was a little unhappy because she had been beaten twice in a row today, so she was in a rare state of absent-mindedness. When she walked out of the internet cafe, she accidentally stepped on the foot of the young man who was about to enter the door. This group of hot-tempered young men who were active in the vicinity of Wenqing town were instantly ignited. When they saw Wenwen's overly beautiful appearance, they didn't care even if there were 4 boys by her side. After all, they had a lot of family. The one who had his foot stepped on had the gall to extend his hand towards Wenwen's face, planning to touch her face first. He said, "Little girl, you stepped on your brother's foot and you want to leave without saying anything?" Seeing this, Qin Guang reacted the fastest. He quickly retreated and turned his face away at the same time. This scene was so familiar. The only difference was that last time it was at night, and this time it was in broad daylight. As for the 3 grandsons of Lin Jingwei, they didn't need to care about those details. They were just props in the background. Xiong who didn't know the severity of the situation, was the first to explode. He roared, "Damn it! Get lost! I'll slap you!" Needless to say, Xiong movement, coupled with his ferocious tiger-like aura, was quite intimidating. However, Wenwen didn't make a sound. She raised her hand at lightning speed and blocked the ignorant young man's palm. Then, she tightened her fingernails and flicked her finger. The young man covered his hand and wailed as he shrank to the side. About 30 seconds later, Qin Guang finally turned his face around. It was truly a tragic sight. "Sigh, you people are really too much. Why did you have to come and be the punching bag when university's campus belle is in a bad mood? Your courage and generosity will be engraved in the annals of history." Warriors. Lin, Bai, and Xiong stood in front of the internet cafe in a daze. Their faces were full of shock. Qin Guang patted their shoulders heavily and sighed. "Brothers, you all know what kind of life I've been living for the past 3 years, right?" Chapter 147. The 3 of them nodded their heads like chicks pecking at rice. "I understand, I finally understand." Recalling how they dared to tease when university's campus belle, the 3 grandsons broke out in a cold sweat. Oh my God, there were more than 10 people. In 30 seconds, her movements were so fast that they couldn't be seen clearly. They could only see them flying out one after another and landing on the ground. No one knew where they were injured, but no one could get up. "To be honest, Xiong, luckily I held you back just now. If you tried to help and got hurt by accident, hee. Didn't I have internal bleeding at the start of my first year? I never told you what happened, but it's not too late to tell you now. I was just hit by her and accidentally punched. It was just one punch." The more Qin Guang spoke, the more terrifying it became. The 3 of them looked at Wenwen with a strange expression. It was like a rabbit looking at a female tyrannosaurus. When they looked at Qin Guang again, it was as if they were looking at a martyr walking on the road to hell. Lin Bai and Xiong could not help but recall what Qin Guang said last night. No wonder he said that after they saw Wenwen's methods, they would never dare to make fun of Wenwen again in this life. Not to mention this life, even if there was a next life, I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. Wenwen walked back while clapping her hands. She smiled at the three of them. Why are you looking at me like that? Didn't Chen Guang tell you about me? Chen Guang rolled his eyes. Am I not trying to protect your ladylike image of Wen University's campus belle? The three of them shook their heads violently. Lin Jingwei, who was standing by the door, almost hit his nose on the door frame. Glancing at the three of them in disdain, Wenwen continued, that's why Chen Guang isn't the same as you guys. Back then, when he first met me, I was here beating up a bunch of people, but he wasn't afraid of me. She brought it up again. Chen Guang felt his stomach ache. He thought to himself, Missy, I was stunned by your punch and almost lost consciousness. I wanted to be afraid, but I didn't have the energy to be. This was probably fate. Hence, after Chen Guang and Wenwen became best friends, Lin Baixiong and the other two never had the same treatment. The three of them were instantly filled with admiration for Chen Guang. Brother Guang was indeed Brother Guang. There was only one Brother Guang in this world. Bai Nyangzi rolled his eyes. How can we compare to Brother Guang? Alright, let's go. Wenwen wiped the blood on the back of her hand on Chen Guang's shirt. Then, she waved her hand and left. The five of them ran away in a flash, leaving behind a bunch of wailing punks. A true warrior never looked back to see an explosion. After returning to school, Lin Baixiong and the other two found an excuse to run away. Chen Guang was dragged to the library by Wenwen. There was a balance between work and rest. After playing games, he had to pick up his studies later. The two of them sat in the library. Chen Guang stared at the papers in front of him, but he couldn't help but recall the 2 consecutive rounds. Under normal circumstances, although Wenwen was tough, she wasn't so hot-tempered. That young man had only reached out to take advantage of her, but he hadn't. At most, she had taught the leader of the punks a lesson and subdued the others. Today, she had been so ruthless, which was clearly abnormal. She was indeed venting something. Chen Guang speculated that it was very likely that his godly performance had made her look forward to the next round. She had planned to win 2 rounds quickly, but in the end, she had lost. She had been unhappy, and those people had been out of luck. Therefore, she had taken all the human sandbags that had been delivered to her doorstep. Alas, in order to save the world, in order to prevent as many innocent people as possible from being harmed, I can't lose. Chen Guang gritted his teeth and steeled his heart. He definitely couldn't let Jiang Liuwa get away with it and ride on his head. Good. Since you've chosen to have a showdown with me in Dota, as the master of this generation's golden finger, as the savior of Emperor of the Azure, I accept your challenge. I'll kill Jiang Liuwa. If I have time, I'll practice well. But the prerequisite is that if I have time, after all, I'm also carrying a family on my shoulders. Time is very precious. At this time, Wenwen also propped her chin up with her hand. She wasn't staring at Chen Guang, but was looking outside through the library's glass wall with a dull expression. Her mind was wandering, and no one knew what she was thinking. Chen Guang still didn't have any clues about his family's affairs. The clues had been completely cut off, and he didn't know what had gone wrong. Wenwen couldn't understand why, with second uncle's ability, he hadn't been able to investigate further. She really didn't believe that there was any power in this world that could even deceive second uncle's eyes and ears. Recently, some people in the family seemed to have started to get restless, and there seemed to be some undercurrents surging inside and outside the family. Being able to smoothly finish this university seemed to be the last of her contented days. Thinking about these things gave her a headache. She really couldn't accept it. Fortunately, she had beaten up a lot of people today, so she was in a much better mood. When the car comes to the mountain, there will be a road, and when the boat comes to the bridgehead, there will naturally be a way. If Chen Guang knew that a tomboy like me would also have troubles, he would definitely laugh his teeth off, wouldn't he? As she thought about it, Wenwen turned her head again and faced Chen Guang, who was staring blankly at her. For a moment, she smiled. 10 miles of spring breeze didn't care, but a smile could charm 100 people. Caught off guard by her smile, Chen Guang blushed and turned his head away. His heart was pounding, and there was only one thought in his mind. It was terrifying. How could I let my imagination run wild because of this tomboy's smile? And this was after witnessing her valiance just now? Is there something wrong with my sexual orientation? What are you doing? Why are you scaring me? Chen Guang fiercely hammered his chest twice. Even the boys and girls at the desk next to him gave him a strange look, but he managed to calm his heartbeat. Wen spat in her heart. Your words don't sound pleasant. I smiled at you, and you actually said I was scaring you. Her cunning mind suddenly jumped out again. You said I was scaring you, right? Then I'll give you some big news. Right, I see that you've been studying very hard recently, and your accuracy rate is almost 50%. Otherwise what? Chen Guang suddenly felt alarmed. This man was going to make a big move. Otherwise, I'll give you a little reward in advance? Then I'll stimulate your motivation? Sure enough. To be honest, since he recognized Liuli as his master, the old man hadn't drawn a map for a few days. You're making me lose my essence. No, now is the crucial moment for the old man to practice the 10 lands 8 wasteland celestial demon transformation. I can't allow the vital yang essence to be wasted for nothing. I must stabilize my heart. Is what you said true? My mouth. I can't control it anymore. Wen immediately laughed like a flower. She couldn't care less about the other boys who were already peeking in this direction. She clutched her stomach with one hand and stuck out a slender finger with the other, heavily poking Chen Guang's forehead. He almost flipped over. Dream on. Was it true? With your current appearance, you still have to kneel. The two of them were teasing each other here, but they didn't notice that a pair of eyes filled with hatred and jealousy was staring at Chen Guang from the gap of the stairs on the upper floor of the library. Zheng He's knuckles turned white. He was so jealous that he almost went crazy. On what basis? What virtue and ability do you, Chen Guang, on what basis? Chapter 148. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, it was the weekend again. Well, it had only been a day. Waking up early in the morning, Chen Guang drove the Rena that he had escaped death to the city. When the master of the auto repair shop handed the repaired car to him, he said to him with tears in his eyes, "Little Chen, don't ruin the car like this. I feel pain for it just by looking at it." Chen Guang's face was red. He gritted his teeth and explained to the master, "It's not what you think." The people sent by Zhu Jifa left their hometown at about 6:00 in the morning. It was estimated that they would be sent to the long-distance bus station at 6 Apricot Tower by 9:00. Chen Guang was going to pick up his parents and then go to Wujing City Hospital. After all, the people sent by Zhu Jifa to the provincial capital had other things to do. It was already very troublesome for them to hitch a ride to 6 Apricot Tower. When he saw his parents, they were surrounded by a lot of old men and women who were recommending some healthcare products to them. Before Chen Guang could walk to his seat and speak, he saw his father, Chen Guoli, suddenly take out a large bottle of Puss Corporation's special medicine from his backpack and shouted, "Pure American imported medicine. Specializes in treating rheumatoid arthritis, lumbar disc herniation, frequent urination, sore legs. Come, take a look. You won't be able to find such a shop. See. English. Enrich. Do you know him? Pure imported. If it's fake, I'll pay you 10 times the price." The group of old masters and aunties at the side rolled their eyes and turned around to leave. Damn it, a fellow traveler from another city had rushed into the temple of the Dragon King. Chen Guang immediately took a step back and planned to greet his parents after a while. But there was nothing he could do about it. Although he managed to scare away his peer, the gazes of the passers-by were too lethal. He covered his face. My family is unfortunate. My teasing is definitely inherited from my father. Son. Here. Here. Damn, Dad, you're so old, but your eyes are still so good. I've already covered my face, yet you can still pick me out from the crowd. Is it because my hairstyle is too cool and eye-catching? When the two elders got into the car, Chen Guang vaguely heard others say that this family of swindlers had made a fortune and could even afford a car. The moral degeneration of the world was getting worse. On the road, Chen Guoli wanted to interrogate Chen Guang several times about how he earned the 180,000 yuan, but when he looked at his wife, Feng Rong, who was breathing heavily, he didn't open his mouth in the end. He was afraid of scaring Feng Rong, so he had given Feng Rong an excuse, saying that he had contacted an old comrade in arms, who knew that his family was in trouble, and had lent him 180,000 yuan. At that time, Feng Rong was extremely touched. She knew that her family was in such a difficult situation and was like a bottomless pit, but he was still willing to lend her 180,000 yuan. No matter what, she wanted to personally express her gratitude. Later, Chen Guoli had no choice but to lie again and again, saying that he was now a big boss and had gone overseas on a business trip. He wouldn't be back for 2 to 3 months, and he couldn't get through to the domestic phone either. Only then did he reluctantly give up. Chen Guang stared at the red light at the intersection carefully and finally asked. It wasn't that he had forgotten, but from the moment he picked up the two of them, he could tell that his mother's condition wasn't right. He didn't dare to ask, but now he couldn't hold it in anymore. Dad, Mom hasn't stopped her dialysis recently, right? Chen Guang asked. Before Chen Guoli could speak, Feng Rong spoke first. She waved her hand casually. Of course not. Your dad worked so hard to earn money. Some time ago, he had a comrade in arms who was a boss who lent us 180,000 yuan. Our family isn't short of money now, but we have to thank him later. Oh right, old Chen, does your comrade in arms have a daughter? Is she close to Xiao Guang's age? All right. Haven't you earned enough? Isn't it enough to earn 180,000 yuan from him? You want to earn his daughter too? Chen Guoli had to continue making up lies. It was tiring. Feng Rong glared at him. What are you saying? Our Xiao Guang is a top student from a top university. His future is limitless. Our family might be a little poor now, but Xiao Guang is very capable. It's not a loss to have an in-law, right? Isn't this very popular among comrade-in-arms? Mom. Forget it. What era are we in now? That's not popular anymore. We youngsters all want to be free to love. Who would still do this? Of course, Chen Guang knew that there was no such thing as a boss comrade-in-arms. A comrade-in-arms who could help the village had already raised 100 to 200,000 yuan for his dad. Wasn't the boss comrade-in-arms that his mom was talking about him? It was really hard on his dad. He had to keep up such a big lie until now. If it was someone with a slower brain, he would have been exposed long ago. However, seeing that his mom could still ramble on. Although her complexion didn't look good, her body seemed to be in good condition. After all, the Puss Corporation's special medicine had never been stopped. Chen Guang's mood suddenly relaxed. Since Chen Guang had said so, Feng Rong didn't pester him about the comrade-in-arms anymore. She turned her head from the back seat and looked up and down at Chen Guang with a pained expression. It must have been hard on Xiao Guang these days. You have to go to school and drive at the same time. You must be tired, right? Sigh, Mom's illness can't be cured. Looking at you skinny makes me feel terrible. If it wasn't for the fact that you haven't graduated from university and haven't married yet to give birth to a grandchild for me, I would have given up long ago. Chen Guang's mood was a little complicated. My current body can also be called skinny. When I take off my outer clothes and stand on the side of the road, I look like a top male model. When the students from Duchuan Academy of Fine Arts pass by, they have to take out their drawing boards to draw me a portrait of David. However, when he heard the second half of his mom's words, his heart felt terrible. The energy of this roasting and the feeling of discomfort mixed together. The feeling was too complicated. Chen Guang helped Chen Guoli out of the predicament. On the other side, Chen Guoli saw that Chen Guang's expression was a little gloomy after listening to his mom's words. He pulled his wife's shoulder. What nonsense are you talking about? If you're sick, you have to treat it. We have 2 grown men in our family, can't we handle it? Xiao Guang is concentrating on driving. Don't talk nonsense with him and disturb his driving. If he gets a traffic ticket, he will have to deduct points and pay a fine. Sure enough, Feng Rong was frightened. She didn't say any more nonsense, but there was a dull pain in her stomach, but she endured it and slowly sat back down. 2 drops of cold sweat appeared on the tip of her nose, but she didn't make a sound. Chen Guoli held her hand from the side and gave her an encouraging look. He knew that she did not want to make Chen Guang uncomfortable. There was a little traffic jam today. When the group of them arrived at the hospital, it was almost noon. It was the time when the doctors got off work. Chen Guang let his parents have lunch at the small shop at the entrance of the hospital while he rushed in with an empty stomach. His dad would bring his lunch over later. Although his mother's attending physician, Dr. Ma, was not very famous and was not a famous expert, because he was serious and responsible, there had always been a lot of patients. Even if the old patients came, unless it was an emergency, they would usually have to wait in line. Just as they stood in the queue, Chen Guang saw someone unexpected. It was his cheap sister, Wu Tong. This woman walked out of the doctor's office with a troubled look. Chapter 149. After taking 2 steps, Wu Tong raised her head and saw Chen Guang standing in the crowd, staring at her. She opened her mouth wide and stared blankly for a moment before regaining her composure. Her expression became even more complicated. After thinking for a while, she still walked towards Chen Guang. Chen Guang was puzzled. What's wrong with this woman today? She's different from my impression of a tough and domineering police officer. Wu Tong walked in front of Chen Guang and asked, "What are you doing here?" Chen Guang gestured to the long queue in front of him. "I'm accompanying my mom to the hospital to see a doctor. I'm waiting to hand in the registration form." "What about you?" Wu Tong blushed, but she quickly calmed down and waved her hand casually. "I'm here to chat with a friend." "What's wrong with your mom?" Chen Guang was still in a daze. "Mom? Your mom? Really?" Wu Tong blushed even more. Chen Guang's expression darkened. He hesitated for a moment and said, "It's nothing serious. She's old and has some minor problems. But my dad made a fuss and insisted that she come to Wujing City Hospital." Wu Tong believed his words and said, "You brat. Old people can't be taken lightly even if they don't have minor illnesses." "What do you mean your dad made a fuss?" "All right, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first. I still have to patrol." Waving goodbye to Chen Guang, Wu Tong strode away with her long legs, dragging away the gazes of many people nearby. When she turned around a corner, she suddenly leaned her back against the wall. Her little heart was thumping wildly. She thought in her heart, "I must have seen a ghost. Why is this brat's vengeful spirit still lingering? Wherever I go, I run into him. I'll be damned if I believe you." Thinking of what Tang Ying had said to her a few minutes ago, Wu Tong's heart couldn't calm down. What's wrong with you?" "Well, if you insist that you're sick, then it's lovesickness." "What nonsense are you talking about? I don't want that kind of person. Although I don't know who has charmed a little demon like you. However, you, Wu Tong, are already a girl in your 20s. If it was in ancient times, a girl of your age would have already arranged a marriage for her son. Just follow your heart. This day will come sooner or later anyway. Conscience my ass. I'm telling you, this isn't normal." There was no reason for her to suddenly fall in love with someone she didn't even know before. This is simply unimaginable. There's nothing strange about it. We've watched so many romantic movies together. Don't you believe that love at first sight exists in this world? What love at first sight? Even if there was a clock, it wouldn't be like that. Besides, you're not young anymore. Why haven't you been seduced by some wild man? Pfft. I'm not like a slacker like you. I'm a top student of my generation, the youngest PhD student in the history of Moorlands Medical College. I have long since made up my mind to devote my glorious and great life to the boundless cause of medicine. Get lost. Don't disturb me here. There are still 180 patients waiting for me. This bestie of hers is not reliable at all. She's the youngest PhD student in the history of Moorlands Medical College. You're not even as good as that dog skin plaster I caught on the street a few days ago. I anxiously ran over to you, hoping that you, a great doctor who had returned from abroad, could diagnose me and see if there was something wrong with me mentally or physically, but you only teased me. How infuriating. She didn't expect to bump into the ignorant Qin Guang the moment she walked out of Tang Ying's office in a huff. She almost jumped in fright. Fortunately, as a police officer, Wu Tong had good mental fortitude. She calmed herself down immediately. Although she also felt that Qin Guang's reply was a little unusual, she was even more flustered. She didn't have the guts to turn around and ask. She took a few deep breaths and hurried downstairs. Qin Guang was also full of doubts. However, he was worried about his mother's condition, so he didn't think too much about Wu Tong. After his parents came upstairs, Qin Guang ate lunch and waited with them. About 2 hours later, they were finally called. Miss Feng, please take a seat. Dr. Ma was indeed a responsible person. He didn't even look at the consultation card before calling out Feng Rong's surname. That wasn't all. He turned around and greeted Chen Guoli. Mr. Chen, you should have come for a checkup last week. Why did you only come this week? Chen Guoli scratched his head embarrassedly. I was delayed by some trivial matters last week. I'm really sorry. Dr. Ma put on a straight face. What's there to be embarrassed about? The patient is your family member. You should be embarrassed about yourself. Remember, you can't delay this in the future. The patient's health is more important. Chen Guoli nodded repeatedly. Dr. Ma consulted Chen Guoli about Feng Rong's condition for a long time. In the end, he wrote a bunch of forms and asked Chen Guoli to take them to prepare to arrange for Feng Rong to be admitted to the hospital first. At the same time, he wanted to do all kinds of checkups. Her dialysis this time would be done at the city hospital together. It would probably take a few days before she could be discharged. The few of them were busy in the hospital for a while. They had to move the beds in the ward and rush to do a lot of checkups. It was only after dinner that they finally settled down in the ward. Qin Guang chatted with his parents in the hospital the whole time. He planned to go back to school after 9 o'clock and come over early the next morning. When it was about 8:30 p.m., Dr. Ma came. Everyone couldn't help but feel that it was a little strange. Since Dr. Ma was the one who was seeing patients during the day, he should have gone home to rest at this time. It should be another doctor on duty who came. Dr. Ma chatted with everyone along the way and asked questions along the way. After waiting for about 20 minutes, he stood in front of Qin Guang's family. Originally, Qin Guang planned to leave, but since Dr. Ma came, he stayed. He wanted to listen to what he and his mother asked. It was still the usual questions. Then, Dr. Ma suddenly changed the topic and said something else. Actually, it's like this. I will be going to Moorlands Medical College in the United States to further my studies in 2 days. So, all the patients under my name will be transferred to another doctor who returned from Moorlands Medical College, Dr. Tang. Previously, the other patients have already been notified one by one. They have also met Dr. Tang. Madame Feng just came today. I thought that I would have to leave tomorrow, so I specially came to inform Mr. Chen and the rest. What? Qin Guang's family was a little surprised. They also felt a little uneasy. Dr. Ma was so serious and responsible. Who knew if the person who took over his shift would be the same as him? Of course, everyone had known each other for almost a year. Seeing that he was going to leave, they were also reluctant. Chapter 150. Seeing everyone like this, Dr. Ma smiled. All of you, don't worry. Moorlands Medical College is a sacred place in my eyes. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to further my studies there. Dr. Tang is the youngest doctor in Moorlands Medical College in the past 10 years. Before she returned to China, she already had a lot of clinical experience. She even diagnosed a lot of famous people on the other side of the Atlantic. One of them is probably a senior executive at Google. They specially spent $1 million to treat her. Of course, she successfully completed her mission and brought the patient back from the brink of death. When Chen Guang's family heard how Dr. Ma described Dr. Tang, they couldn't help but feel happy. However, they felt a little embarrassed as it was in front of Dr. Ma. Chen Guoli was still mature. He immediately waved his hand. What do you mean by spending $1 million to treat a patient? This is written in those chicken soup for the soul stories. However, since it's the hospital's decision, we believe in the hospital and Dr. Ma's choice. Dr. Ma became serious. Mr. Chen, don't doubt me. I know my own standard very well. Although I'm a few years older, I might not even be comparable to a normal doctor in Moorlands Medical College, let alone a genius like Dr. Tang. What I told you is all true. Dr. Tang is also very responsible. Before the official handover, she had already read all the patient's medical records. She came prepared. Although the 3 Chen family members were still reluctant to leave Dr. Ma, they were secretly looking forward to it. They really wanted to see what kind of person Dr. Tang was. At this moment, a large group of people came in. Dr. Ma raised his head and smiled. He pointed at the door and said, "Speak of the devil. Dr. Tang is here. She's the prettiest female doctor. I'll bring her to talk to you. Actually, she already knows a lot about your condition." Chen Guang followed Dr. Ma's finger and looked at the door. He was instantly stunned. The person in the white coat was walking in front. Although the clothes she was wearing were different from that day, her face was clearly that of the drunk woman. Ever since Chen Guang had hung up on her and blacklisted her, she had tried different numbers to call him. Whenever she heard her voice, she would pinch the number and ignore her. But he never expected to meet her again in this hospital, and she was about to become his mother's attending physician. He subconsciously thought of this woman's appearance when she was drunk into a pool of mud, and then looked at her excessively young face. Chen Guang's heart suddenly turned cold. His parents were still looking at the young female doctor expectantly. His father sighed. He's really a young genius. Dr. Tang is so young. Feng Rong, who was lying on the bed, also straightened her neck. She looks like she's in her 20s. Dr. Ma nodded and smiled at Tang Ying. Then, he turned around and sighed, "That's right. It's more difficult to get a doctorate from Moorlands Medical College than to become a professor in our national medical university. But she's only 26 years old. The younger generation will surpass us in time." Chen Guang felt that Dr. Ma was praising the drunk woman too much. He thought about it again. Wasn't Dr. Ma going to Moorlands Medical College? The drunk woman must have found a way for Dr. Ma to get into that so-called Moorlands Medical College. That was why he was sparing no effort to help this woman get promoted in the hospital. At the thought of this, Chen Guang's already bad impression of Tang Ying dropped by 30%. I've seen you at your worst. How can I believe that you're a so-called genius doctor? You're only 26 years old. How can I trust you with my mother's life? Not only did Chen Guang see Tang Ying, but she also saw Chen Guang. She was even more dumbfounded. She did not even notice Dr. Ma nodding at her. She was stunned at the door of the ward, and an inexplicable sense of fear welled up in her heart. She just watched helplessly as Chen Guang looked at her. His gaze changed from surprise to doubt, and then, disgust. That's right. That gaze was clearly disgust. Of course, Tang Ying knew why the boy was like this. She was also embarrassed because of what happened that day. Every time she thought about it, she felt ashamed. Dr. Tang, what's wrong with you? A large group of interns and nurses followed behind her, but she blocked the door and could not enter. A young nurse could not help but ask quietly. Tang Ying suddenly came back to her senses. She no longer looked at Chen Guang. Instead, she sorted out her emotions and walked to the bed closest to the door. Today, she was not a drunken woman. She was an attending physician. She was here to work and make ward rounds. Everything else should be put aside for now. However, since she met him here, and he seemed to be a patient's family member, he could not continue to hide from her this time. At the same time, she could also settle her worries. At this time, Dr. Ma came over and greeted Tang Ying. He said, "Dr. Tang, come over here first. Miss Feng Rong is a patient who just came here today. I'll introduce you to her and then I'll go home." Tang Ying did not react. When she entered the door just now, she did not see Dr. Ma at all. However, she still hurriedly greeted Dr. Ma. Then, she looked in the direction that Dr. Ma was pointing. It was the bed next to Chen Guang. According to Dr. Ma, the lady next to the bed was Feng Rong. Tang Ying had already memorized Feng Rong's medical records. Of course, she knew her condition. It was a very typical chronic kidney failure. Looking at them, they seemed to be a family of 3. He was Feng Rong's son. No wonder he drove a sports car all day to earn money even though he was a college student. It turned out that there was such a reason. I thought that he was a college student who wanted something new and ran around to have fun. I didn't think that he was just being filial. Then, she remembered that he had wasted a few hours of earning money in order to wait for her to sober up. No wonder he was so angry after being misunderstood. Thinking of this, Tang Ying felt even more ashamed. She must find a chance to explain to him. As for Feng Rong's illness, she had to do her best regardless of whether it was true or not. With this thought in mind, Tang Ying finally calmed herself down. She walked over with a smile, greeted him and began to ask questions. During the whole process of Tang Ying's questioning, Chen Guang did not say a word. He hid the disgust and distrust in his heart deeply and only looked at the woman coldly. The examination results would only come out tomorrow. No matter how good Tang Ying was today, she could not get any substantial information from him. It was just a very simple and casual conversation between the new doctor and the patient. Dr. Ma hurriedly left halfway through the conversation. Before he left, he only said goodbye and said happily, "I'll leave the rest to you." Chapter 151. He watched as Tang Ying led a large group of people around the ward, talking to one patient after another, and then instructing the assistants or interns behind her to hand her the examination reports one after another. She then looked at the reports while chatting with the patients. Chen Guang did not say a word from the beginning to the end. A thought was running through his mind. No, I must replace her. I can't put my mother's life in the hands of an alcoholic woman. She's still so young. God knows if she exchanged her education with her beauty. God knows if the CEO of Google really wanted to hire her for $1 million. Maybe she was hired because of her beauty. I don't trust her from the bottom of my heart. Originally, Chen Guang planned to leave at 9 o'clock. In the end, even though his father had repeatedly urged him to leave, he still made him sit in the ward until 10 o'clock. Only then did Tang Ying finish talking to each patient one by one. In fact, Chen Guang's guess was right. Dr. Ma's admission to Moreland's Medical College was indeed due to Tang Ying's efforts. Back then, she got herself drunk because she had just returned from abroad and was planning to make a name for herself in the country. However, she was ostracized by a group of senior doctors in Wujing City Hospital. She stayed in the hospital for a whole 2 months, but she was not assigned to see patients even once, nor was she assigned to the inpatient department. Instead, she was ordered around by a group of senior doctors all day long, just like those interns who had just graduated in the country. Yes, those interns are also doctors, and I'm also a doctor. But how can my status be the same as theirs? How can they treat me like this? Any one of the team I lead in the United States will be treated as a VIP by you old people here. You'll call me an expert. Just because I'm yellow and I'm from the country, I'm the youngest genius doctor in Moreland's Medical College. But when I come back to the country, I have to be suppressed by your qualifications? I'm not convinced. I've had enough of this feeling of seniority. So that day, Tang Ying directly flipped the table during the meeting. She was in an extremely bad mood, and for the first time, she got herself drunk. She was lucky that she didn't fall into Chen Guang's hands. If someone else flipped the table in public like this, they might not be able to stay in the hospital anymore. Fortunately, she was Tang Ying. Then, Tang Ying decided to fight for something and set her sights on the good old Dr. Ma in the hospital. Dr. Ma had been working in the hospital for more than 10 years. Perhaps it was because of his limited talent that he was not good at currying favor. He was still the most ordinary attending physician, and he was still far away from becoming an associate professor. This target was neither too high nor too low, which was just right. Therefore, Tang Ying personally went to look for her mentor in the United States and used her connections in the team to get Dr. Ma to join her. She was not trying to harm Dr. Ma. Anyone in the hospital who wanted to improve their academic level would not let go of the opportunity to further their studies in Morelands. It was hard to say how much they could learn, but it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. After getting such a great benefit from Tang Ying, Dr. Ma also braced himself and forcefully transferred all the patients under his name to Tang Ying under quite a lot of pressure. That was why the current scene happened. Sure enough, when she left the ward and returned to the doctor's office, Chen Guang immediately followed her. He stood in front of her and looked at her knowingly. "Hello, Dr. Tang. I want to talk to you." As expected, when she left the ward and returned to the doctor's office, Chen Guang immediately followed her. He stood in front of her and looked at her knowingly. "Hello, Dr. Tang. I want to talk to you." Sure enough, when she left the ward and returned to the doctor's office, Chen Guang immediately followed her. He stood directly in front of her and looked at her with a tacit understanding. "Hello, Dr. Tang. I want to talk to you." Tang Ying stood up. Hearing his tone, she forced a smile and said, "Well, I also want to talk to you. It's not very convenient here. Let's talk outside." He also wanted to try to change his face, but when he thought of his mother's illness, he really couldn't be happy. He couldn't care less about what other people did, but he absolutely couldn't allow this woman to tie his mother's life to her chariot and help her rise to power. The two went straight to the flower bed downstairs. Before Tang Ying said anything, Chen Guang said first, "I know you're still thinking about what happened that day, but it's over. What I want to talk about is something else. Wait, whether you accept it or not, I still want to apologize to you." Tang Ying guessed that he would have this attitude, and she also guessed what he wanted to say next, so she directly interrupted him. "There's another thing. I'll apologize to you first, but I really hope that my mother can be replaced by another attending physician," Chen Guang said with a cold expression as he ignored Su Tao's apology. Tang Ying's body trembled slightly. Even though she had already guessed that he would make this request, when he really said it, Tang Ying still felt very uncomfortable, but more than that, she was angry. It's fine to be pushed aside by the senior doctors in the hospital, but now that I've finally made a name for myself, what right do you have to question my ability? Even if it's because of what happened that day, I'm naturally a head shorter than you, but my medical skills are absolutely not to be looked down upon by anyone. Anger gradually accumulated in her heart, and Tang Ying's breathing became heavy. "What? Are you angry? Let me tell you. I'm even angrier. I don't care how you became that Dr. Morelands, and I don't care how you convinced Dr. Ma to transfer my mother's patients to you, it's not important to me. I just want to change my mother's attending physician. Tang Ying was angry, but Qin Guang was even angrier than her. Tang Ying clenched her fists tightly. She wanted to punch Qin Guang in the face, but she still held back because she owed him. But she didn't want to compromise. I don't agree. I know your mother's condition very well. In the entire Wujing city, there is no doctor more suitable than me. It seems that if I don't give you face, you really won't give up, right? That's my mother's life. How dare I put my mother's life in the hands of an alcoholic woman like you? God knows if you'll get drunk one day and randomly prescribe medicine for my mother. God knows if you'll leave a pair of scissors in my mother's stomach during the operation. I don't care about anything else. That day when you mistook me for a pervert, I can also understand. Any woman would have the same thoughts as you at that time. But for today's matter, I will not take a single step back. Chen. Don't go too far. Even if I really feel guilty because of that. Tang Ying spoke loudly. She opened her hands and leaned her neck forward, venting her anger to her heart's content. If you really feel guilty, then do me a big favor and change my mother to Professor Lu. Just take it as I'm begging you. Do a good deed and return this little favor to me, okay? Qin Guang once again interrupted her. Chapter 152. Tang Ying was dumbfounded. She realized that there was no way she could convince this boy who was as violent as a lion. Because she couldn't refute Qin Guang's words. I know I'm asking for too much. Professor Lu is a famous doctor. Our deputy mayor's illness was the same as my mother's, and he was the one who cured him. We wanted to see Professor Lu before, but he didn't accept us. Later, we met Dr. Ma. Fortunately, he was also very responsible. But this time, I really can't trust you. As he spoke, Qin Guang gnashed his teeth with tears welling up in his eyes. But he forced himself to hold on. Even if you're angry, I understand. I'm only begging you to help me with this matter. You and Professor Lu are colleagues, right? If you help me put in a good word for me, this might work out. If I can get Professor Lu's help, my mother's condition will be better. It doesn't matter if Professor Lu's fee is higher, I have money. I can make money. A lot of money. I don't lack money. Qin Guang thought of the Patek Philippe watch that was temporarily in Jiang Ye's hands, and he felt a sense of relief. Tang Ying stared at him for a long time, and her face gradually dimmed. She silently turned her head to the side. Okay, I'll help you. This little boy, he didn't even study, and now he's standing in front of me and saying he's rich. Fine, I admit defeat today. Qin Guang was overjoyed. He had been looking forward to this moment ever since he met this woman. Professor Lu was the chief expert in the nephrology department of Wujing City Hospital. His medical skills were well known, but ordinary patients couldn't come into contact with him for a long time. Asking Tang Ying for help was a desperate attempt. Of course, even if he couldn't get Professor Lu, Qin Guang would still find another doctor. But I won't completely quit your mother's treatment group. I will be Professor Lu's assistant. Tang Ying said again. By now, Qin Guang was already in ecstasy, and he didn't care so much. Thank you so much. Shall we go talk to the chief about this? Don't worry, I, Tang Ying, have always been a man of my word. This kind of thing, the patient's family members can't convince the director. I'll go myself. Seeing him instantly turn from rage to wild joy, Tang Ying couldn't help but feel a sense of powerlessness in his heart. Who was to blame for this? Was Qin Guang wrong? He wasn't wrong. After that kind of mishap happened between them, it was reasonable for him to completely lose confidence in this overly young returning professor. Was he wrong again? Of course, even though Tang Ying wasn't arrogant, she was sure that she wasn't any worse than Professor Lu. In fact, she was even better at modern treatment concepts. Now that things have come to this, it can only be fate making a fool out of me. Who told me to get drunk just once in my life and fall into his hands? Sigh, I brought this upon myself. This time, I'm going to make a fool of myself. If someone else asked Professor Lu to take on another patient, they would most likely be rejected. However, if it was Tang Ying, he would definitely agree. This was because Professor Lu was the most authoritative person among the senior doctors who had pushed him aside. However, Professor Lu helped his patient find Professor Lu, and the patient even wanted to replace Professor Lu, but Professor Lu agreed. This was probably what Professor Lu wanted. This meant that he, the arrogant professor who had just returned from abroad, had lowered his head to him. Tang Ying let out another sigh. What a sin in life. Chen Guang was in a great mood. Seeing that Tang Ying didn't look like she was going to regret her decision, he felt like this was a blessing in disguise. If it weren't for Dr. Ma and Tang Ying, there was no way he would be able to get into Professor Lu's patients. Even if you're such an amazing returning doctor, I still only trust Professor Lu. Dr. Tang, I was a little too emotional just now. How about I treat you to supper as an apology? Chen Guang slightly turned his head and secretly wiped the tears from his eyes. He then turned his head back and smiled. Tang Ying felt like she lost to him. You're a man, you change your attitude faster than flipping a book. She angrily stared at Chen Guang and said, don't act like you're the one who took advantage of me. I'm on duty right now, I can't be bothered with you. I'm going back to my room, you can stay wherever you want. Anyways, I'll switch your mother's room with Professor Lu's special care unit tomorrow, okay? But I have to warn you, the cost of the special care unit isn't low. If you can't handle it, you'll have to switch back to my room. It's up to you. Tang Ying resisted the urge to step on this guy. She put her hands in the pocket of her white coat and stomped upstairs in her high heels. Chen Guang wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he excitedly rushed upstairs. He ran faster than Tang Ying. He went back to his room and told his parents that he would be switching to Professor Lu's room tomorrow. Even though Chen Guoli and Feng Rong felt like there was something fishy going on, they were overjoyed. Professor Lu was an evergreen doctor, so they were overjoyed. The next day, when Chen Guang came back to the hospital, his mother had already been switched to a special care unit. Tang Ying and Professor Lu were in the room, asking about his mother's well-being. When Chen Guang looked at Tang Ying again, he felt like she was pleasing to the eye from every angle. What if she got drunk and vomited all over his car? What if this woman got a PhD because of her beauty? What if she forced Dr. Ma to take over his position? None of this was important. If she really got Professor Lu here, then everything would be fine. In the afternoon, the test reports came out one after another. Chen Guang ran up and down with a thick stack of test reports in his hand. He stood outside Professor Lu's office and suddenly became nervous. He came alone and didn't tell his father that he had all the reports. He pushed the door open and heard Professor Lu scolding Tang Ying. Xiao Tang, I know you young people are impulsive, but everything has to be done step by step. Although Dr. Ma has been making slow progress in the past few years, he is still one of the mainstays of our hospital. You suddenly took over all of his shifts. How is it? You're a little flustered, aren't you? Professor Lu is right. I was too impatient, Tang Ying said in a muffled voice. Young man, you're still not convinced. When I have dinner with your father, I'll ask him to reprimand you. Even though you're a rare genius, you still have to calm down. The hospital isn't like your school, and it's definitely not like your home. You can't do whatever you want. This time, you took over all of Dr. Ma's patients. A lot of people are complaining, and I'm the one who helped you out. Don't look at me lecturing you like everyone else, as if I'm purposely making things difficult for you. I'm doing this for your own good. Got it, Professor Lu. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. The patient's test reports are coming out soon. I have to wait. Tang Ying turned around and her face immediately fell. She rolled her eyes and wrinkled her nostrils. She was full of displeasure. When she turned around, Chen Guang saw her strange expression. Chapter 153. Tang Ying was pissed when she saw Chen Guang. It's all your fault. Otherwise, why would I come here to teach him a lesson? When she walked past him, she rolled her eyes at him. Chen Guang was reading the report in his hand. He was not in the mood to argue with her because there were too many plus signs in this thick pile of reports. Although there were still some reports that would take a few more days to come out, based on what they had so far, they could already see some signs. The situation is not good? Professor Lu's office was not as crowded as an ordinary doctor's office. There were only him and an assistant. After all, Professor Lu was usually only responsible for a few patients. Chen Guang looked at Professor Lu quietly. Professor Lu was carefully reading the test report line by line. Chen Guang tried to see the change in his expression but failed. This old man had been immersed in medicine for many years. He did not show his emotions in front of patients or their families. After Professor Lu finished reading, he looked up and asked, "Young man, which family member of the patient are you?" Chen Guang quickly answered, "I'm Feng Rong's son. My name is Chen Guang." "Oh, hello, Chen Guang. Here's the thing. I've read these reports, but there are still a few that haven't come out yet. I'll read them later. Let's do the analysis first," Professor Lu said calmly. Chen Guang could not help but ask, "Professor Lu, has my mother's condition worsened?" Professor Lu paused for a second and seemed to hesitate. He looked at Chen Guang's worried eyes and said, "Young man, I'll give you a heads up. But don't let the patient know. If possible, arrange a kidney transplant as soon as possible." Chen Guang felt his body go soft. How? How could this be? Puss Corporation's special medicine has never stopped. So many people say that the medicine is very effective. Why can't it work on my mother? Professor Lu's face was still calm. He smiled and patted Chen Guang's arm as he said, "Everyone's physique is different. Even the best medicine doesn't have a fixed effect. Young man, don't get too excited. Although the situation isn't ideal, it's not that bad either. It never hurts to prepare early." Professor Lu, even though that's the case, the transplant matching information has already been submitted. If I could, I would have done it a long time ago. It's my own transplant match that failed. Otherwise, I would have donated my kidney. Although Professor Lu said it calmly, Chen Guang was not at ease. Professor Lu rubbed his forehead and patted Chen Guang's shoulder. He said, "If I knew you were this impatient, I wouldn't have told you this. I'm asking you to prepare early because I hope that once a suitable kidney source is found, your family will be able to afford the corresponding expenses immediately. Don't let any accidents happen because of the cost. Don't let you worry for nothing, understand?" Chen Guang walked out of Professor Lu's office in a daze. He thought about it carefully and realized that he didn't say anything. He was just scaring himself. As for the financial problem that Professor Lu mentioned, Chen Guang had the Patek Philippe in his heart, so he wasn't too worried. After walking a few steps, he happened to see Tang Ying walking out of his mother's ward. She was holding the lab report in her hand. Chen Guang was a little tempted. He wanted to go find Tang Ying, but he felt awkward. After Tang Ying went back to her office, he made up his mind. No matter how good her medical skills were, no matter how much he offended her, he had to put everything aside in front of his mother's condition. Chen Guang mustered up his courage and stood in front of Tang Ying. Tang Ying looked at this young man's awkward expression and remembered how domineering he was last night. She felt proud of herself. No matter how talented she was still young. "What, you don't trust my medical skills? Why did you put the report in front of me again?" Seeing that there was no one else in the office, Tang Ying whispered to Chen Guang in a voice that only Chen Guang could hear. Chen Guang's hand shrank back, and he almost wanted to take the report and leave. However, Tang Ying snatched it from him and said, all right. Let's forget about the past. You saw what happened today. I embarrassed myself in front of Mr. Lu for helping you. But I'm your mother's deputy chief physician, this is my job. Tang Ying looked at the report as she spoke. As she looked at it, her face became a little gloomy. Under normal circumstances, she could barely hide her emotions in front of the patient's family. However, too many things had happened between her and Chen Guang. They couldn't be considered friends, but they were too close to be enemies. Their relationship was very complicated. Is there a problem? Chen Guang's heart tightened again. Tang Ying didn't answer him. Instead, she looked at the report again before she finally said, after the dialysis, don't leave the hospital yet. I hope we can find a suitable kidney as soon as possible. Chen Guang's face turned pale in an instant. How could it be? Tang Ying looked around before she said again, don't be too nervous. The situation isn't at its worst yet. It's only because of you that I'm telling you the truth so early. Anyway, just wait patiently. Don't let it slip in front of the patient. Chen Guang couldn't remember how he got back to his mother's ward, nor did he know what he talked about with his parents with a smile on his face. His memory of the previous hour seemed to have gone blank. When his father asked him about the report, he only said that it wasn't out yet. At that moment, he was sitting alone on the rooftop of the hospital building. He looked up at the sky and suddenly took out the heavenly Holy Grail from his bag. He shook it with all his might and shouted, Lioli! Lioli! Come out right now. In fact, Chen Guang should have thought of this a long time ago. Unfortunately, the time he had to communicate with Lioli was too short. After entering the world in the cup, everything seemed so rushed. This woman especially liked to talk with her fists, so it was seriously difficult to communicate. Now that things had become serious, Chen Guang couldn't hold back anymore. At that moment, Lioli was watching Hikari happily. How could she be in the mood to pay attention to Chen Guang? She was about to pretend that she was offline when she suddenly sensed that Chen Guang's mind was in a very abnormal state. She was afraid that something would really happen if he held back, so she quickly appeared in his mind. As soon as Lioli, who was shrouded in white mist, appeared, Chen Guang shouted in his mind, Lioli! Help me! Save my mom! Chen Guang had never used this tone to beg anyone. She had never acted like this since she got along with Lioli. She was stunned and realized one thing. It seemed that she cared too little about this savior. So much so that she didn't notice such an important thing around him. Chapter 154. I already know about your mother's situation. You're the God Emperor, you must have a way, right? I'm sorry. I can't do it, at least I can't do anything now. Chen Guang was stunned. Why? Aren't you some incredible God Emperor from the endless God realm? You can't even cure someone's illness? Then what kind of God Emperor are you? What use do I have for you and this heavenly sage grail? Lioli sighed faintly. If I wasn't trapped in the heavenly sage grail, let alone cure someone, I could even create an immortal body for your family. But I really can't do it now. The heavenly sage grail's level is too low, my divine power is too weak. Whether it's hypnotizing you or controlling Wutong's emotions, I've already consumed a lot of my divine power, the effects can't last long. Asking me to cure your mother sounds simple, but it's equivalent to me creating a new body. It's not something the heavenly sage grail can support. Then you mean that as long as the heavenly sage grail is upgraded, I can cure someone? Then quickly give me the world in the cup. How many levels do I have to upgrade to? Say it. No matter how dangerous it is, I'll do it. Chen Guang gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and roared at the heavenly sage grail while shouting in his heart. No way, it's impossible. Creating a new body is equivalent to creating a living being. It requires at least the 5th level of the heavenly sage grail, the heavenly solar grail, to barely support it. It's much more difficult than your modern medical methods. Besides, to upgrade the heavenly sage grail, you have to complete the test step by step. How can this be? Aren't you a god? Aren't the so-called gods able to destroy the world with a breath? Qin Guang, you should know, right? Creation is much more difficult than destruction. Didn't I already say, my divine power is at this level, I really can't help you. Don't say that nonsense. Let's upgrade. Quickly upgrade. Are you stupid? Didn't I just say, the test of the 3,000 worlds can only be done step by step. Every time I prepare the world in the cup for you, you have to wait for the heavenly sage grail to recover its energy. It takes time. You can't rush this, I can't do anything. Pa. Qin Guang threw the heavenly holy grail onto the ground. Emperor of the Azure knew that he was angry at this time. She rolled her eyes and didn't want to argue with him, but changed the topic. But I have another idea about what you're talking about. I wonder if you're interested in listening? It's much easier than treating someone with my own hands, but the effect is about the same. Holy shit. There was a way. Why didn't you say so earlier? Qin Guang pounced on the Holy Grail like a hungry tiger. He picked up the Holy Grail and kissed it, caressed it, and wiped it like it was a treasure. My little sweetheart, little sweetheart. Forgive me for my slip just now. Tell me if you have any ideas. Hurry up and say it. Liuli's words were like 10,000 thunders, ringing in Qin Guang's mind. He was like a drowning man struggling for his life when he suddenly grabbed a swimming ring. Qin Guang was ecstatic. Let's do it. Let's do it. Hee, do you really think it's that simple? Let's not talk about the divine power I'll use to draw the power of fate. Do you really think that there's no price for manipulating other people's fates? No matter what the price is, I can accept it. The ignorant are truly fearless. Cut the crap. I'll do it even if the sky falls. Otherwise, I'll bang my head against the wall and let you find another savior. Since you've made up your mind, I won't persuade you anymore. But I still have to let you know in advance that there will be karma when you touch the bell of fate. Your next world in the cup will no longer be a simple test world. It will be a world of punishment derived from the world of fate. It'll be a narrow escape. I'll do it even if it's a narrow escape. Qin Guang was sure that he had Liuli in his heart. What am I afraid of? She's just trying to scare me. Since she's willing to say it, no matter how scary it is, I definitely won't die. The savior can only be me. Chapter 155. Sigh, it was also a pity. If such a domineering and dazzling power of destiny could only be used once, it would be too disappointing. So, Qin Guang asked again, right, after using the power of destiny this time, can I still use it later? Of course, he would have to use it repeatedly. Go ahead and build as much as you can. This time, I've drawn out a little bit of the power of destiny. Its realm of punishment will only be based on the strength of the power of destiny I use. Do it again? That will be a punishment that's 10 times stronger than the normal standard. I'm not joking with you. At that level, I really won't be able to protect you. Alright. It seems like your family's skills are all one-time use. Anyway, thank you very much. Just do your best to break through the barriers. When the level of the heavenly Holy Grail is raised, everything will be fine. To be honest, up until now, the old man has never tasted defeat in the realm of the cup. Isn't this slow leveling up your fault? Yes, it's all my fault. While they were joking, Azure suddenly changed the topic. She suddenly roared in Qin Guang's mind. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and prepare to enter my realm of the cup. Just as Qin Guang was about to ask her what she wanted to do, he felt a terrifying suction force suddenly emerge from the heavenly Holy Grail in his hand, tearing his mind apart. Different from the past, the suction force this time seemed to contain a majestic aura. After touching it, Qin Guang felt as though he was standing under Mount Everest, like an ant facing the towering mountain peak. How domineering, how majestic. Even if it was just a fleeting touch, it still made Qin Guang feel as though he was worshipping the other party. If it wasn't for the familiar aura that surged out from the heavenly Holy Grail at the crucial moment to protect Qin mind, he would probably be prostrating on the ground at this moment. Was this the aura of the realm of fate? In the unseen world, Qin hollow eyes looked forward. It was as if he had passed through endless time and space. In an unimaginably distant place, he saw a huge bell that could support the heavens and the earth. It floated in the air, connected to the top of the clouds in the sky, and suppressed the rivers, mountains, and seas below. It rotated slowly, but when it rotated, it seemed to affect the circulation of the sun, moon, and stars in the sky, and a feeling of great power arose spontaneously. A towering, majestic, and domineering aura was constantly spreading out from the giant bell. Heaven and earth, this world existed because of the existence of this bell, and it revolved because of the rotation of this bell. On the surface of the giant bronze bell, there were countless mysterious runes. Light flowed on every rune and spread out in all directions, illuminating every corner of this world. There seemed to be countless cities in the mountains and rivers below, as well as countless strange beasts and birds. Above the city, existences that looked like gods and humans were flying on swords or riding on clouds. The giant beast walked on the plains, stepping on broken streams, breathing out clouds. Birds flew above the clouds, their wings spanning tens of thousands of feet, and they soared for 90,000 miles. The terrifying realm of fate. The terrifying bell of fate. What kind of existence is this? How will I be able to reach the pinnacle of this incomparably vast realm of fate? How will I be able to stand proudly in front of this bell of fate? How will I be able to wield such a terrifying power in order to ring this bell of fate that surpasses the entire world? With these thoughts in mind, Qin was pulled into the realm of fate. Lioli. What the hell is going on? Qin kept shouting, but he didn't stop in the sea of clouds. Instead, he was pulled by Lioli, who stretched out her snow-white arm and flew forward, breaking through the space and being pushed forward. You ask me what the hell is going on? I can't directly enter the realm of fate. You are the master of the Supreme Grail, and I have to use you as a catalyst to open the passage to the realm of fate. Brat, prepare yourself, I'll let you see the true power of this bell of fate. Let's see if you dare to think about it a second time. Before Lioli's voice faded, Qin felt the back of his head being grabbed by someone and pushed forward. His face hit the end of the space-time tunnel. At the peak of the clouds in the realm of fate, an extremely small face suddenly appeared. It was Qin face. Qin opened his eyes wide and stared fiercely at the bell of fate in front of him, which was extremely far away, but because it was so huge, it seemed to be within reach. At this moment, the originally calm realm of fate seemed to shake violently. Although there were no changes on the bell of fate, Qin suddenly had a feeling that he had been discovered. The billions of creatures in the city below and the trillions of birds and beasts outside the city suddenly stopped what they were doing and turned their heads in the direction of Qin. Countless gazes converged together, and under the control of the bell of fate, they turned into a colossus that traversed the heavens and the earth. With an astonishing momentum, it swept through the realm of fate. The sky and earth changed color, and thousands of thunderbolts exploded, as if to vent the hostility of the bell of fate towards the intruder. Qin only had one feeling: I am being targeted by fate. At this moment, he felt his back being pulled by someone, and he flew backward. His face was out of the range of the realm of fate. The bell of fate. I am the Emperor of the Azure of the Endless Divine Realm. The Supreme Deity of Lioli Divine Kingdom. The descendant of the Master God of Chaos. Heed my command. Lend me a wisp of the power of fate. As he floated past Lioli, Qin saw Lioli, who was naked but surrounded by thousands of rays of light, fiercely stab her left hand into the hole that she had just made in her face. When she shouted the Divine Emperor's decree, she seemed to have temporarily revealed the true form of the Divine Emperor. Under the pressure of the bell of fate and the true form of the Divine Emperor, even with the protection of the aura of the heavenly Holy Grail, Qin vision darkened, and he completely lost consciousness. Before he lost consciousness, there was a vague consciousness in his mind. This is too terrifying. Really too terrifying. When he faintly woke up, he was still standing on the rooftop, holding the heavenly Holy Grail wrapped in a double-layered cup cover, and looking up at the bright moon and stars in the sky. It seemed that only a short moment had passed. But in the bottom of his heart, there was an inexplicable sense of silence. Slowly lowering his head, looking at the unremarkable cup in his hand, Chen Guang felt as if he had been in another world. It was just a glimpse, but it was as if he had seen a whole world that was completely beyond his imagination. But this was only one of the 3,000 worlds in the heavenly Holy Grail. If it weren't for the fact that this cup was in my hand, and that there was a vague feeling of blood connection with me, I really wouldn't dare to believe that I was the owner of this cup. How inconceivable. The Emperor of the Azure disappeared again. As for what she did afterward, Chen Guang wasn't clear. He only vaguely felt that the biluacun in the cup tasted a little sweeter than usual. Oh, I seem to have accidentally seen something I shouldn't have. Liuli's small buttocks are white, and the shape is also very beautiful. Her waist is also very slender. Alas, it's a pity that I couldn't turn around in time to see her face. It's a great regret in my life. Little brat, I advise you to forget what you saw just now, if you don't want to die. You tired me out, and not only do you not know how to thank me, you actually took advantage of me in your heart. Damn it. Liuli's slightly tired voice suddenly came from the bottom of his heart. Chen Guang's whole body quivered, and his heart that had just been hanging in suspense suddenly calmed down. It's fine as long as she's fine. Like I said, it's just a mere bell of fate. How could the Emperor of the Azure be so easily killed? She is the divine Emperor. In short, thank you Liuli, it's really good to have you. Chapter 156. When he returned to the ward, he told his parents about Professor Lu's judgment and told them to wait patiently for the dialysis. When Chen Guang went out, his father came out as well. Xiao Guang, is the situation really that optimistic? Chen Guoli knew his son best. When he saw the joy on Chen Guang's face, there was no way he could contain himself. After a brief pondering, Chen Guang felt that he couldn't reveal this matter to his father, so he replied, "It's neither good nor bad. But I have no idea what's going on, but I feel that something good is about to happen. Perhaps the wish I made to the heavens last night is about to come true." Chen Guoli was stunned. He knew that his son didn't believe in ghosts and gods. He patted Chen Guang's shoulder and said, "It's been hard on you. I hope your good mood will bring you good luck." When it was evening, Chen Guang was carrying bags of food upstairs when he saw Tang Ying rushing out of the office. "Chen Guang!" Tang Ying shouted as soon as she saw him. Tang Ying's face was filled with joy. It was a smile that came from the bottom of her heart. Chen Guang could vaguely guess why she was happy. He thought to himself, putting aside all of her shortcomings, she's actually a good person. Well, isn't that obvious? As long as she's a normal person, putting aside all her shortcomings, she's a good person. Dr. Tang, what's the matter?" Chen Guang stood still and quietly waited for Tang Ying to tell him the result he was expecting. Even though he was mentally prepared, he still couldn't feel at ease until the dust settled. It wasn't that he didn't trust Lu Li, it was just that this matter was too important. "I just received news that a brain tumor patient from Southeast Province is willing to donate her organ. I've already asked the matching center to send your mother's lymphocytes and other materials overnight. We'll have the final result in a few days." Actually, Tang Ying was quite conservative. When she first saw the information, she almost thought that her eyes were playing tricks on her. If she didn't know that Feng Rong didn't have any sisters, she would have thought that the person in front of her was Feng Rong's twin sister. She stared at the patient for a long time. Even though she had yet to perform the lymphocyte toxicity test, the human leukocyte antigen A system test, and the group reactive antibody test, with her knowledge, she was 100% certain that there was a terminally ill patient who could save Feng Rong's life in the Southeast Province thousands of miles away. One life, one death. One happy, one sad. The life of the brain tumor patient was about to come to an end. It was indeed a pity, but the choice she had just made could bring hope to another person. Chen Guang laughed. He laughed ruthlessly. He had imagined the power of Lu Li's power of destiny and thought that he might have to wait for a few days, but he really didn't expect that the good news would come so quickly. In one day, he went from great sorrow to great joy. His mind went up and down several times, drifting erratically. It wasn't until this moment that he finally calmed down. I don't know what to say, but I really thank you. Tang Ying smugly punched his chest heavily. Consider it as repaying what you owe me. I'm going to do my ward rounds. Remember, don't tell the patient for the time being. Just let your father know. The patient's mood needs to be stable. It's not good to be happy or sad. Oh, by the way, is there any problem with the kidney transplant? The hospital's expenses aren't big, but the donor's side, there must be some. Money is not a problem. No problem at all. I understand this, it's what I should do. Chen Guang nodded heavily. Tang Ying suddenly reached out her sleeve and wiped his face. All right. I'm leaving. Kid, don't you realize that tears are coming out of your eyes? After Tang Ying walked away, Chen Guang touched his face. Really, it was a bit embarrassing. But everything was fine. With Professor Lu and a highly compatible kidney, Chen Guang clenched his fists. It's a done deal. As long as the surgery is successful, my mother can live a normal life. Chen Guoli found a chance to tell his father about it, and Chen Guoli was also in ecstasy. The problem of the kidney was solved, but another matter suddenly appeared in front of the father and son. Although donating a kidney was a good deed, this kind of great kindness couldn't be simply thanked. Including the other treatment and recovery costs, it would be impossible to support it without at least 500,000 yuan. Previously, Chen Guang had already transferred 220,000 yuan to Chen Guoli. 20,000 yuan was used to pay for the special medicine, so there was still 200,000 yuan left in his bank account. This bank account wasn't under Chen Guoli's name. Instead, it was under Chen Guang's uncle's name. The Qin family was still in the bankruptcy liquidation period, and they were still in debt. Chen Guoli's bank account was like a bottomless pit. No matter how much money went in, it would be frozen until the debt was paid off. Just do as I said before. Sell the house under your uncle's name. Now the housing prices in our hometown have risen quite a bit. It can probably be sold for more than 4,000 yuan per square meter. That's 300,000 yuan in total. If it's still not enough, I'll scrape together some money and borrow some more. Leaning on the edge of the rooftop, Chen Guoli fiercely took a drag of his cigarette and said. Chen Guang shook his head and said, that house can't be sold. Don't worry about money, I have a plan. What plan do you have? You're just a little kid. I haven't even asked you how you got the money from last time. What did you do? Why do I feel like 180,000 yuan fell from the sky? I almost fainted at that time. Chen Guoli finally remembered. Chen Guang thought about it. Since he couldn't hide it any longer, he told him the truth, starting from when he saved people in the lake, to his cameo appearance in Big Beard Deng's movie, and his bet with Zhouya. Apart from the Holy Grail and Azure Glaze, he recounted everything else in great detail. He felt that this long series of stories was reasonable and convincing. Unexpectedly, Chen Guoli widened his eyes and looked him up and down for a long time. If I remember correctly, you've been a non-swimmer since you were young, right? This joke of yours isn't funny at all. In his heart, Chen Guang thought, you still don't know that your son has already turned into a beggar. With a mysterious smile on his face, Chen Guang picked up the cup and drank a mouthful of water. Don't tell me you're being kept by a rich woman. Pfft. Chen Guang's saliva sprayed all over Chen Guoli's body. He couldn't believe that a father would say something like that to his son. When he thought about it again and realized that this was Chen Guang's father, he immediately understood. You asked me, so I told you. Even if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. What can I do? Chen Guang said through gritted teeth as he wiped his mouth. Chen Guoli didn't continue to harp on this matter. Let's just say that what you said is true. God knows how lucky you are. But there's still a gap of 300,000 yuan. You can't go and make another cameo, right? Who would be so stupid as to make a bet with you? Don't worry about that. Anyway, the house can't be sold. There's still a house. At least we still have a home. I don't want you and Mom to be old and still have to rent a house and run around. Money. I'll go find it. It's a deal. I've listened to you since we were young. This time, you listen to me. Chen Guang was, of course, confident. After all, he had Patek Philippe in his hands. Chapter 157. In the end, Chen Guoli still failed to beat Chen Guang. Chen Guang won the first great victory against Laozi. The father and son adjusted their mood for a long time before they dared to go back to the ward. Although it was a happy event, it was not the time to tell Feng Rong. Feng Rong's sharp eyes vaguely saw something, but she knew that the two of them would not say it even if she asked, so she did not ask. She just wanted to make things difficult for them. After 9 o'clock, Chen Guang was driven out of the ward by Chen Guoli. He had to go to school on Monday tomorrow. Chen Guoli said that he would take care of him here, so there was no need to worry. He asked Chen Guang not to abandon his studies. Sitting in the car, Chen Guang held the phone in his hand and hesitated a little. The number displayed on the phone was Jean Shiyue's number. He had never taken the initiative to ask for Patek Philippe before. To put it bluntly, it was because of his face. But at this time, he had to put his face aside. He knew that the watch was with Jiang Yage, but he was really afraid of the woman who said, "I like you," and "my light," to flirt with him. There was a beeping sound from the phone. Chen Guang did not know what the person on the other side of the phone was doing. He could not help but feel uneasy. It was already night. Would they sleep? Hello? Hello, is this Chen Guang? The phone was suddenly connected, and Jean Shiyue's gentle voice came from it. It sounded soft and seemed to be a little sleepy. Suddenly, there was another scream from the side. Is it Brother Chen Guang's phone call? Let me do it. There was another click sound from the phone, and the person on the phone was replaced by Jiang Yage. Chen Guang had a headache. If it was Jean Shiyue, he could try to ask for Patek Philippe in a calmer tone, but he really did not know how to open his mouth when it came to this woman, Jiang Yage. Unexpectedly, Jiang Yage took the initiative to say, "Brother Chen Guang, do you want to ask about that watch? How could you be so direct? Where do you expect the old man to hide his modesty?" "All right, yes. I wanted to ask when you guys are free. I'll come over to look for you." He couldn't be courteous with them anymore. If he continued to be courteous, something bad would really happen. But Sister Shiyue and I are overseas. We finished shooting the scenes in the Wujing Film and Television City a long time ago. We just went abroad to record songs 2 days ago. Chen Guang's heart sank. Huh? When are you coming back? Jiang Yage looked at the time and felt that it was a little difficult to calculate in her head. Jean Shiyue, who was next to her, took the phone back. "Yage, let me do it. Look at how hard it is for you to calculate. Brother Chen Guang, we will be back in no more than a month. After all, it is a new album, and it will take a little longer. But after we return to China, we will not arrange other work for the time being. We will come to Wujing to find you first, okay?" Jean Shiyue had said it like this. The big star was busy every day, but she came to find him as soon as she returned to China. What else could Chen Guang say? However, it seemed that it would take a month for the preparation of the kidney transplant to be carried out before the operation could be carried out. For the time being, he would just leave it at that. At the critical moment, there was no time. At that time, he would simply throw away his face and call these two people to exchange the Patek Philippe for cash to save his life. Of course, Chen Guang knew that it was shameless to do this, but so what? Was there anything more important than his mother's life? After chatting with the two people for a while, Chen Guang hung up the phone. He heard that it seemed to be early in the morning, so he didn't want to disturb them. He started the car fiercely and counted the time. There were still 3 hours until 12 o'clock. He might as well run for another 2 hours to earn as much as he could. Do you think that Brother Guang is sick? Bai Nyangzi looked at the back of Chen Guang from behind and ridiculed him. The next morning, Chen Guang got up early, which was rare. No longer skipping classes, he went to the teaching building with the other 3 people. At this time, the 4 of them were walking together on the way to school. Lin Jingwei nodded silently. I think so too. He is very sick. Xiong counted his fingers. Once, twice, 3 times. 99 times. This guy can't walk properly for 99 consecutive steps. That's right. Yesterday, there was some progress on the kidney source, and the required expenses were basically settled. Today, Chen Guang was in a good mood. He felt lighter than usual. As he walked, he felt like he was about to fly. Of course, it was not because he had practiced some peerless martial arts. Yesterday's happy event had been brewing for a whole night. After a refreshing sleep, he completely got rid of the heavy pressure that had accumulated in his heart the day before, and it burst out violently. People were in high spirits when they encountered happy events, so they even skipped when they walked. Chen Guang couldn't help but sing, Xiao Ma, Xiao Erlang. Carrying that backpack to school. F***ck. Hurry up and hide. Run away quickly. Lin Jingwei and the other 2 were shocked. They quickly pulled each other and retreated, trying to stay as far away from Chen Guang as possible. It was too embarrassing to let others know that the 4 of them were in a group. Gokyo University had a very long bridge between the dormitory area and the teaching building. It spanned across the Yuanming Lake, connecting the students' heaven and hell. People in Jianghu called it the Long Bridge, and the students called it the Bridge of Helplessness. It was a natural moat between the students' first class and sleeping in. Those who were interested in learning something during their 4 years in university hated the Long Bridge to the core because it was too king long. At this time, on the Long Bridge, everyone was looking at the guy who sang the Little Erlang. How much stimulation did he have to go through to sing in public with that broken voice of his? Chen Guang was in a good mood, so he didn't care what others thought of him. He jumped up high again and landed hard on the ground. I'm so proud, so proud. Ouch. He finally received his retribution. He stepped on a huge piece of banana peel. He didn't know which wicked person threw it at him. The reason why it was called huge was because the banana peel was too big. Whoever threw it was destined to be lonely and have no friends for the rest of his life. Then, Chen Guang slipped after being hit by the banana peel, and his whole body flew to the side. Like a non-professional high jumper, he flew face down over the railing of the Long Bridge and plunged into the Yuanming Lake below. Finally, he hit the water with a splash. From the beginning to the end, the plot had developed too quickly, so he didn't even have time to scream. Oh my God. He's going down. Bai Nyangzi was the first to scream and jump to the side. Xiong the silly guy, laughed so hard that he couldn't stand up straight. Extreme joy turns to sorrow. This was his comeuppance. Lin Jingwei looked at the railing of the Long Bridge and remembered what Chen Guang had said to him many years ago. The railing of this long bridge is only half a person's height. Someone will fall down accidentally, right? Because of Chen Guang's words, Lin Jingwei had been deliberately walking in the middle of the long bridge for the past few years, and from time to time, he hoped that someone would really fall down. After waiting for 3 years, this day had finally come. Chen Guang's words came true, and he cursed himself down. As for Chen Guang's safety, no one was worried. After all, everyone knew how powerful he was in the pool. Yuanming Lake was nothing to him. At this moment, Chen Guang had already jumped out of the water. He was holding onto his phone as he howled in pain, Motherf asterisk cur. Damn it. My popcorn 4S. What a scam. There was no need to tell others about his miserable state, but those who heard it would be sad and those who saw it would cry. Worse things were happening on the other side. The number you have dialed is unavailable. Please try again later. Zhong Bai hung up the phone and looked at the group of expectant people behind him. He wondered, strange, why can't I get through to Racer God? Chapter 158. He excitedly carried his bag and sang to class, but he slipped back to the dormitory wet. The popcorn 4S was already a thing of the past, and the brand new textbook was finally soaked with old tear stains. Chen Guang also gave in to himself. When he thought of the moment he fell into the water, he felt a faint sadness in his heart. Popcorn 4S was already a thing of the past. Granny is an errand girl. This time, she is famous again. Naturally, he skipped the morning class with a good reason. First, he turned on the computer and went to the Jingxi website to buy a new phone. Yo, Popcorn 6P? As a loyal fan of popcorn, of course, there were only 3 words: buy, buy, buy. After buying the phone, Chen Guang used about 20 minutes to muster up his courage and opened the school forum. As expected, his feet was already flooding the screen. Famous Joker sings Little Erlang, falls bridge crying popcorn. A human tragedy caused by a banana peel. Strongly appeal to everyone not to litter everywhere. I know the one who fell into the water. His name is Chen Guang. F***ck. I can tolerate anything else, but why did you directly expose my real name in this post? What kind of hatred? He clicked on it and saw that the ID of the poster was Swimming Master. F***ck. Anyone with a normal brain would know who this guy was. Who else could it be other than Dong Tao from the architecture department next door? Not only did this scumbag expose his real name, but he also clearly stated his age, school, and department. That wasn't the end of it. He even grabbed onto Chen Guang's beloved popcorn phone and mocked it for being a loser's phone, saying that it was a model phone for losers and that it had no class. Wasn't it just a broken phone? Was there a need to care so much? Many people replied that the swimming master's mouth was too poisonous, that the popcorn phone was friendly and easy to use, and that the love maniacs felt superior and so on. But there were still some people who thought the same as Dong Tao and looked down on his phone. That was not all. It seemed that someone had switched to a Smurf account and started to dig up Chen Guang's dark history without saying a word. He had been defeated 5 times in a row, got into fights, skipped classes for food, and so on. In short, it was as dark as it could be. It was purely portraying Chen Guang as someone who committed all sorts of crimes. Needless to say, this must be that scum Dong Tao's Smurf account. Chen Guang was infuriated when he saw this. He had taught Pan Zhang a lesson. Did he think that he would be safe in the academy's student group? Dong Tao, did he come out to look for trouble? Didn't I squash you like an ant during the sports day? But when I decided not to withdraw from the competition and handed over the championship to you, you still jumped up and bit me like a mad dog. Do you really think that I, Chen Guang, am a pushover that you can pinch at will? Do you really think I don't dare to teach you a lesson? Immediately, Chen Guang packed up and was about to head downstairs to beat someone up. When he knocked on the door of Dong Tao's dormitory, it was empty. It seemed that this brat was outside using his phone to surf the internet. You're really dedicated. You're so energetic in typing and hating me on your phone. Don't you feel tired? Going downstairs, he looked left and right. The way the people around him looked at him didn't seem right. Of course, this was just a psychological effect. The school forum only had so much influence. Perhaps less than 1 in 10 people really liked to browse the forum. But since his mind was preoccupied, he subconsciously felt that there was something wrong with the way other people looked at him. It seemed that he couldn't stay in school today. Chen Guang slipped away and went to the internet cafe, planning to take advantage of this opportunity to practice hard in preparation for taking revenge on Jiang Luhua in the future. At the same time, he could avoid the school's limelight. In the end, he encountered another strange thing in the internet cafe. That ID called Jiang Luhua actually appeared again. Damn, he's like a shadow, haunting me like a vengeful spirit. Although Chen Guang's level was extremely high, he had been stuck at 3,000 points in the past. After his rise, he had been playing duo with Wenwen, so now he was still at 3,000 points. Meeting Jiang Luxiao again in this section was a great surprise to him. Why did it feel like the other party had a special ability? No matter which section he played, this guy would appear in. Are you trying to fight me? Another owner of a cheat. Come. Fight to my heart's content. Fight. After fighting to my heart's content, I kneeled in a mess. I threw the mouse away. I can't play this broken game anymore. I've lost. I'll leave the Dota 2 domain to you, the owner of the second Goldfinger. How could Chen Guang know that Emperor of the Azure was stomping her feet in anger in the World in Cup? She had been watching the manga just now when Chen Guang had fallen into the water. She had only watched half of it and had been enjoying herself when she had disconnected. The most hateful thing was that she couldn't connect again. So when Chen Guang entered the internet cafe again, it was purely suicidal. He had been targeted by Liuli's Jiang Luhua to vent his anger. After Chen Guang's continuous practice while he slept, Liuli's level had improved by leaps and bounds. She had been strong to begin with, but now she was so strong that it was completely unreasonable. When gods played games, mortals suffered. In the short period of time that Chen Guang hadn't paid attention to the gaming circle, the ID Liuli had already made a name for herself on the internet. She was even more dazzling and domineering than when Chen Guang himself had appeared out of nowhere. She could already be called an invincible master. Meet God, kill God, meet Buddha, destroy Buddha. Hey, hey. Don't go. Liuli had a good time, but Chen Guang didn't hesitate to get up and leave. Today wasn't a good day, so he might as well go back to his dorm and sleep. Some words really couldn't be kept in his heart, because once he broke through that gate in his heart, bad luck would follow him like gangrene, and he couldn't get rid of it even if he wanted to. It even made Chen Guang start to suspect whether Liuli had used the power of fate yesterday and, apart from saving his mother's life, brought him small misfortunes one after another. He hadn't even reached the school gate, and he had already run into a ghost. When Chen Guang walked, he was a little too close to the side. An Audi A4L first came out of the school gate, then made a right turn. Then, it suddenly ran to his right and slammed on the brakes. That wasn't all. It seemed to have rained last night, and it just so happened that there was a small puddle of water at the side of the A4L. The gray bastard ran over fiercely, and the puddle of water immediately splashed up. No matter how agile Chen Guang was, he couldn't withstand this sudden sneak attack, and half of his body was soaked in the muddy water. Old Master Guang wasn't a good-tempered person to begin with, so he was immediately enraged. That A4L was in no hurry to leave after doing something bad, and it stopped by the side of the road just like that. Chen Guang frowned. Could it be that this bastard was planning to get out of the car and apologize? One shouldn't hit a smiling person, so there was no way he could happily slap him. Forget it, if he's sincere, I'll be magnanimous and let him off. Just as he was thinking this, the A4L's door suddenly opened, and a rather tall figure walked out, looking at him with a fake smile. Yo, isn't this the diving champion, Popcorn Bro Chen Guang? Are you faded with water today? I accidentally splashed it all over you, so I'm really sorry. Here's 100 yuan. Take it as compensation for the clothes you're wearing, alright? The moment this person got out of the car, he put on an extremely repulsive expression and laughed weirdly, pointing at Chen Guang. Dong Tao. Chapter 159. You can wear out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find it by chance. Chen Guang's face suddenly fell. If it was someone else, it might have been an accident. But since it was Dong Tao who was driving, and combined with the fact that Dong Tao deliberately drove to the side of the road when he approached him, it was obvious that Dong Tao did it on purpose. Fine, I wanted to beat you up before, but I couldn't find you. Now that you have come knocking on my door, I will let you have your way. Recently, Dong Tao had been in a bad mood. The reason was that he had been defeated by Chen Guang in the sports meet. Although Chen Guang had inexplicably withdrawn from the competition, and he had the last laugh, the shadow of his defeat in the preliminary round still lingered. Dong Tao also knew that Coach Qin had failed to invite Chen Guang. Although Coach Qin had never mentioned it again, Dong Tao still had a knot in his heart, and it was hard for him to get over it. After that, he tried to ask Pan Jiang for money. Even if it didn't work out, he felt that he had made a contribution, so he should get some benefits. In the end, Pan Jiang had completely disappeared from the face of the earth. Dong Tao couldn't get through to him on the phone. He secretly asked Pan Jiang's former best friends, and they found out that Pan Jiang had actually dropped out of school. Dong Tao was puzzled, but what made him even more depressed was that he had made a wasted effort and lost face. After all that effort, he only got a meal, and he didn't get any money. His heart was even more uneasy. This bad mood lasted until this morning. Coincidentally, he browsed the school forum on his phone, and saw that a post related to Chen Guang had become a hot topic. Without any hesitation, Dong Tao immediately went into action, and used his real self sock puppet. He was so happy that he had taken his revenge. As for Chen Guang's revenge, Dong Tao didn't care. Time had passed, and he seemed to have forgotten how the three of them had cowered in front of Chen Guang. At that time, Chen Guang didn't really fight with him. Dong Tao thought that he was a semi-professional athlete, and if he really fought with him, he wouldn't lose too much to Chen Guang. It was the same now. Just as he drove out of the school gate, he glanced at Chen Guang casually, and then he remembered that there were several other cars following him, so he did this without hesitation. This was not the end. Anyway, he had more than 10 people on his side. If he didn't take this opportunity to teach Chen Guang a lesson, wouldn't it be a waste of his good luck? Furthermore, they were outside the school. So even if he beat up Chen Guang, he could only suffer in silence as long as he didn't injure him too much. Dong Tao was pitiful. He had forgotten to ask Pan Jiang's classmates about why Pan Jiang would drop out of school and what happened between Pan Jiang and Chen Guang. If he knew that Chen Guang first beat up Pan Jiang's buddies, and then sent Pan Jiang to the hospital, he might not be so stupid and impulsive today. Interesting. I was looking for you. Chen Guang rubbed his hands and walked towards Dong Tao. Dong Tao was slightly surprised. Is this guy really so hot-tempered? He just started a fight because of a disagreement? Doesn't he recognize what car I'm driving? An Audi A4 that costs more than 200,000. What the hell is in your head? This is the car that a university student drives. Is it someone you can mess with? What the hell are you doing? Dong Tao took 2 steps back and signaled the people in the car with his eyes. All of you, get out. Get out. This guy is looking for a beating. Chen Guang was only 2 to 3 meters away from Dong Tao, but he was not in a hurry to make a move. You think you have more people? Fine. Come on. I will wait for you all to come down. I will beat you all together. A few days ago, he observed and learned from Wenwen's domineering moves. Chen Guang did not want to admit that his hands were itching. He did not know how Wenwen trained, but as long as he practiced, he would have a chance to get close to the Tyrannosaurus King. At this time, 3 more cars drove out from the school gate. They went straight to where Chen Guang and Dong Tao were. They stopped and another 8 or 9 people got out. Counting with his eyes, Chen Guang saw 4 vehicles and 13 people. What an auspicious number. 2 of them looked familiar. They seemed to be the people who lost to him in the school's swimming pool. No wonder you are so brave. It seems like you have a lot of helpers. Chen Guang was not anxious at all. That day, at the same place, Wu Tong had died unexpectedly. He had single-handedly stopped Brother Scar and Glasses Wu's group. Although the number of people was similar to today, Brother Scar and the others were just small characters in Wenxing Town, but their skills were indeed strong. Dong Tao's group looked young and strong, but if they were to really fight, they would be nothing more than a silver spear tip, good to look at but useless to the eyes. Now that his own people were here, the fear in Dong Tao's heart had already disappeared. He coldly looked at Chen Guang and continued, having more people is also a skill. I know that you have a few brothers that hang out with you, and if you're not convinced, you can call them over and have a good fight. If you are afraid, then leave with your tail between your legs. In the future, show me some respect. Chen Guang grinned. No problem. But you have to be good. I think I alone am good enough. As for respect, okay. I will respect you right now. Before he finished his sentence, he suddenly moved. He took 2 to 3 steps in front of Dong Tao and pretended to kick him. Dong Tao turned his body to dodge, but Chen Guang did not kick him. Instead, he stomped on the ground, leaned forward, and swung his left hand horizontally towards Dong Tao's face. Dong Tao's head followed the direction of Chen Guang's left hand and swung to the side. His head hit the door frame of his Audi A4L. Everything happened too quickly, and no one expected that Chen Guang would actually dare to make a move. But you're alone. We have more than 10 people here. Dong Tao was stunned. The others were scared out of their wits. Before Dong Tao could scream, Chen Guang took another step forward and grabbed his collar. His right hand reached out and grabbed his hair from behind. Then he slammed him into the car window. The sound was so loud that the people who were watching from the side felt their teeth ache. It was too tragic. Dong Tao finally covered his head and squatted down while wailing. The very sturdy car window cracked from the impact of his head's impact. Chen Guang followed up with a kick that landed on that brat's stomach. Ow! The wail turned into a sharp wail. Who dares to come up? All of this took a long time to describe, but happened in a flash. In a few seconds, the tall and strong Dong Tao became a pile of mud on the ground. The 10 helpers beside him didn't even have time to react. After beating him up, Chen Guang suddenly turned around and glared at the others who tried to get close. The aura of the second officer, who had killed countless people in the Sea of Moments, exploded in an instant. The veins on his arms and neck bulged. The muscles that were originally hidden, under the stimulation of his adrenaline, unconsciously swelled up. At this moment, he looked like a ferocious beast. The young lads who were still in the ivory tower were scared out of their wits. Unhurriedly, Chen Guang took another step forth and stepped on Dong Tao's hand. He didn't exert any force, but he didn't allow Dong Tao to get up. He coldly looked around and continued, all of you should know how this matter started, since you're in Dong Tao's vehicle. I won't talk to you about right or wrong. I just want to ask who doesn't accept it. Come, if he wants it, I'll give it to him. If you don't accept it, come up and try. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.